This is the Albuquerque Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week, we interview leading local business leaders to inspire the vision and spirit that is in every entrepreneur, discussing strengths, weakness, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together to fulfill a shared vision of a new future for Albuquerque.
Okay, this is the Albuquerque Business Podcast, and it is after dark. And I have Alex here today. Say hello, Alex.
Hey, guys. It's going to get real dark.
Yeah, we have a special podcast today. We are going to talk about New Mexico conspiracy theories. We're going to talk about Nazis.
Yep.
We're going to talk about rockets. We're going to talk about underground, subterranean
tunnels. Hybrid
tunnels.
All that. How they even made the damn tunnel.
Maybe
you know what I mean?
Even the New World Order, central banking.
Oh, let's get into it. Hold on. I got to readjust in my seat.
Yeah, we're going to hit heavy. This is a conspiracy theory podcast this time. I feel like Alex is an expert in this arena.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself an expert?
Listen.
How long have you studied?
I've been studying at least 6 years.
Oh, okay.
That's a long time. That's a lot of reading. Yeah. You know, these people are like, I'm going to fumble around on YouTube or something. Like, if you're into it for like 6 years, I mean, you're in it, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, once you get in it, that's the crazy part. Yeah.
That's what I call it, the rabbit hole.
Last night, I was like, I stayed up late. I don't know if you can see this. I have all these notes, little stickies. And I was getting this. I was like, and then this morning I got up and I started studying more. And I was like, I love this shit.
Oh, no, it's just really, it's catchy. You know what I mean?
Especially like this morning I got a cup of coffee. I French pressed.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah. And then
I only French press. I was doing pour overs, and now I'm just like, no, I'll pour it, set it, and forget it. It's like a crock pot. I like the oil. It's a crock pot of coffee. Press.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Come on.
Yeah, so we're going to get into, I want to start off, since this is Albuquerque Business Podcast, I kind of want to start off in New Mexico.
That's a good idea.
So, and I think probably one of the craziest stories that's out there, one of the craziest conspiracy theories is the Dulce, New Mexico alien hybrid, genetic labs, underground, cattle mutilation. Bigfoot has been seen there multiple times.
Yeah, well, why not?
Yeah, well, I mean, why not?
I mean, if we got to add it on top of the pie here.
Yeah, I know. I literally have, right here, there was a 7-foot
bat-winged hybrid. You know what I mean? I might have shit myself if I saw that thing.
Yeah. If I saw that, I'd be like, I'm out.
Yeah, I gotta go.
But he had green berets with him. So, and he got shot. Safe. Yeah, he got, and we'll get into that. But kind of one of the things is, some people know where Dulce is, some people don't. It's on the Colorado-New Mexico border. One of the things that has been really unexplained there, I think more than anything, is we know it's near like the Four Corners region.
Sure.
Is what they call, and there's a Navajo, it's a lot of Navajo lands, Indian reservation lands, and we know that there's a connection between aliens and Native Americans.
Can we touch on that for a second? Mm-hmm. Because you're talking about, you got rain men, right? You got shaman and stuff like that. So what their whole thought is, they can feel the energy of the earth. Right? It seems awfully coincidental that you have these people who are so in tune with the land that they're around, and you have this area that these bases are being set up, and then to add one more tier to it, if you go on the USGS's website and you look at the geomagnetic resonance of the earth, you find that's high there also. So the Navajo...
There's no coincidence there.
That's not a coincidence.
There's Indian reservations next to underground secret bases.
Right. Next to or on top of large geomagnetic pockets coming out of the earth, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like we're using the tech to understand where we want to go, and the Navajos are feeling where they need to be. So when you find, it just seems obvious that that's a place of high energy.
Right.
That's where you'd want to go. If I was visiting the planet, right, say I was a hybrid, wouldn't you want to be there? You want to go where the energy is. Yeah. Like people come to the U.S., they're like, where am I going? I want to go to the Big Apple. Right. Where the energy is, right? Because that's what they know.
Well, like in one of these at Dulce, I have, and this is really interesting, I have an email that was received by somebody that worked with the genetic experience at Dulce Lab, and they said that aliens are not interested in our money, they're not interested in, us, they're not interested in a lot of these things. What they're interested in is the magnetic energy.
Well, that stuff's trivial, right? So we created money, and they know we're just restricting ourselves. That's what we're doing. They have no interest in us as human beings. They look at it from an experience and energy, so they have to thrive off something. So if you look at it from like, oh my God, we're so advanced what are you going to do? You're not eating food anymore.
Right.
You live off of energy.
Right.
You become a higher, more elevated being. So that's what they would want to move to, right? That's the pocket. That's the area. So if you're telling me Dulce has this underground base and that's where the aliens are because it's high energy, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. I mean, when I started getting into a little bit about it, it's in northern New Mexico. Many of you people may know there's just a few thousand people. It's 7,000 feet. It's at a really high level. Yeah. There's only one motel there. Imagine that place.
Yeah, I'm not going in that place.
Could you imagine that?
Hey, can I have the hybrid? Can I have the hybrid room?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Sure, sir. It comes with a mirror on the ceiling, though. You cool with that?
The octopus hybrid lady.
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine that?
This is more than what I bargained for.
But one of the things that is really interesting is they've had several people that have come out. They've had a New Mexico State police officer.
Sure.
His name is Gabe Valdez. He talked about it. They had Tom Adams, who was an investigator that actually that was looking at the carcasses from the cattle mutilation, and we'll get into that a little bit. But what was really interesting to me, because this all started in, and maybe you can get a little bit of this. When we have Los Alamos Lab, we have Kirkland Air Force Base.
Sure.
We have Colorado and all the bases that they have. We have Area 51, Groom Lake, and then we have Dulce. This was all in a time. All this was invented in a time. And I'm going to tee it up for you, Alex, but this was all invented in a time when we had the Cold War in full effect.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So if you look at the onset of conspiracy theories and what people would say would be UFO landings and alien contact that happened here in the state of New Mexico, that was at the onset of our nuclear technology. This is before the bomb went off. This is when Los Alamos down in San Antonio, New Mexico, had originally set up their first nuclear power plant, right? Because to get uranium-236 to 238, or it could be vice versa, I forget what it is, to get the nuclear fuel to make your bombs, you have to have a lot of energy in place. That requires a huge electromagnet, right? Just to move into the science side of it, so let's leave that for a second. Either way, from what the conspiracy theorists say is that when we got the onset of this technology, we needed to learn how to handle it. Because when you get to this level of intelligence and knowledge and understanding, you have two actions you can take. You can either do a lot of good with it, or you can do a lot of bad.
Right. So the military complex would do what?
The military complex would, what would they do with it? What's their prerogative? So obviously, when we were coming out with these fantastic nuclear reactors, post when Chicago, when they got the first chain reaction to actually be sustained, we were building them here in the state. And so we have all this energy pumping out of this specific area, right? And we had massive radar systems at the time. The radar was what I would call radar dirty, right? Dirty technology. So our frequencies were so harsh, there was so much radiation. From what I can understand, it would throw off the guidance systems of these alien craft that would come to visit because they were observing.
Right.
Because we're creating all these new things. It's like watching cavemen work with.
So that would be the Roswell incident crash.
Yeah. Well, there's not only Roswell, but you also had San Antonio and another crash. So San Antonio happened before that. So a local arroyo, and if no one knows what arroyo is, it's typically a dry area because it doesn't rain much over here.
Right.
But it allows the rain to channel down from a higher elevation to a lower one. Right. It's like a dried river.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was an arroyo down in San Antonio, Texas, where these two young boys were out looking for a cow for their local ranch, only to find that when they were out there, they saw this, I believe it was like a 50-foot ship, I don't remember, crashed into a radio tower that Los Alamos was running, right, for, Skywatch or whatever the hell it was, and ended up landing, and there were a bunch of creatures inside, and these kids observed them for like 2-3 hours, right? So that was the first crash. And then after that, you had the Roswell incident, which was a little bit later. But in its geographic region to where you have White Sands Missile Range here in New Mexico,
right,
and the nuclear plant that Los Alamos currently had down there around San Antonio, you'd find that the incidences increase when there's a higher amount of technology and nuclear action that is actually happening, right? And we can find that all over the United States and the rest of the globe.
Well, you think they would be also drawn to seeing what we're doing? On the nuclear side of things.
And, it kind of makes me wonder, so from a conspiracy standpoint, are they here to observe or are they here to protect something, right? Because the Earth was here kind of before us.
Right.
So is this in a circumstance of, are we hurting ourselves or are we hurting the Earth? It's like from the ultimate standpoint, what is their, I don't want to say agenda, because it almost feels a little negative.
We always think in our empirical society, we always think they're out to get us.
Yeah, that's right.
When it could be, they could have seen civilizations come and go, the Mayans or whatever.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so, when we observe something, we get better at it.
Right.
That's why we practice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they practice observing. So if they've seen civilizations come and go, they're so advanced, You'd be like, okay, we know what steps you shouldn't take.
You guys are screwing this up.
Yeah, you guys, I would have taken a left turn 30 miles ago, you know?
This trajectory you're on, we've seen this many times.
It's not healthy, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy. And one of the things that's like really interesting with Dulce and what I like about that area is they've had several incidents where they've come out. There's a big ranch there called Gomez Ranch.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that ranch alone kind of started the whole idea of these cattle mutilations.
Yeah.
And then from there was, but you know, I don't want to get like heavy into the cattle mutilations yet because I'm kind of giving you an overview of it. But there was actually a guy named Paul Benowitz, and he was a scientist that was here in Albuquerque. And he had a Thunder Scientific Labs. Love the name.
It's a great name.
If AC/DC was back then.
Yeah, they'd Thunder. Be like, they were probably the lead investor for that guy's lab, you know?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. But he was like, he kind of got onto this whole grasp of these underground alien facilities in Dulce and became kind of one of these guys where they allowed him to come into, according to him, they allowed him to come into this, you know, the secret entry areas of the facility because there was different levels. And we know, as well as I do, the government has a need-to-know basis.
Of course.
And then, you know, you can't tell your wife, you can't tell your children.
No, you got Q clearance. So just so everyone knows, here in the Department of Energy runs a thing called Q clearance.
Right.
So if you're working with nuclear materials, nuclear weapons, you know, high-grade lasers, shit like that.
Right.
You have to go through your lie detector test and a whole background check and all this other jazz so that you can get to that point, right, before any of that information is relinquished. And obviously, you can't share it.
Right.
Because they consider it a national security threat.
So, yeah. And then I think that started in the 70s also with, you know, when Bush was running the CIA, and we won't need to get into all that.
Yeah, Bush Senior. Conspiracy theory.
Yeah, there's ones with all of that.
That's a tough one. I got to say, that's a tough one to touch on because it's an emotional. It's emotional.
Wasn't his grandfather a Nazi or something?
Oh, my God.
Funded the banks, funded both sides.
Listen, I'll talk about funding both sides.
Yeah, that's if you're a banker and you can fund both sides of a war.
Why wouldn't you?
Yes, exactly.
You don't give a shit who wins or loses.
Exactly. Yeah,
you get
you're gonna
paid
make money
either way.
Either way, yeah. I just felt sorry for Fernando.
Oh, you're right.
Porsche, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
He got stuck with the whole making the didn't he make the Volkswagen?
He did. So the Volkswagen, now we're sidetracking. It's fine. The Volkswagen Beetle, the chassis of the car is the same one that Porsche later adopted, right? It's the Volkswagen, the people's car, you know?
Right. That's what it was. People don't realize that, but the Volkswagen was a Nazi car.
Oh, it totally was. It's transition. You know what I mean? Hitler, now I'm on it again. Here we go. So Hitler used to run these huge propaganda ads saying that we will send you on a specific German vacation getaway, right? So you do all this work and you collect these stamps from the government. And when you have a certain amount of stamps, either from working on the factory or working on cars, building roads, you can take your family, use it, and you can go on a getaway, right? Right. It's a classic fascist thing. Right. Only know that all these people worked.
I like the word.
No one ever went on a getaway.
Can we start like a line of classic fascist fashion?
I love, yeah.
It's like a lot of mute grays.
Yeah, a lot of mute grays, heavy reds, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No one drinks white wine. It's all Merlot.
Oh, that would be funny. So, yeah. So what this Gabe Valdez that saw these sightings, he was saying that they were seeing in a lot of, I mean, it's a very, very small town, but a lot of at the Indian Reservation and at the town, they were seeing up to 2 unidentified flying objects, UFOs, a night.
Okay, so you're outside, you're a cattle rancher. I like talking reason, right?
Right.
So I like to think about this.
Yep.
You're outside, you're always observing, you're handling your things. If something is out of place, you're going to know it. Right. The Navajos know when it's going to rain, like hours in advance. They can call it right out of the gate. So if you're telling me just a basic cattle rancher who's been around, doesn't really feel for the land, but understands what his scenery is because he knows his area,
right? You
know when something's out of place. So if you're talking a small town where everybody's in everyone's business,
yes,
and you'd be like, hey, we saw something in the sky.
State troopers, police officers. I mean, these aren't like
here's the next reasonable
guy that's
subject.
Just walking on crazy on the street.
You touched on a great point, right? Here's the next reasonable thing. Why would you, if you spent your whole life building up your credibility, want to wreck it just like that?
Right.
Nobody wants to look like a kook because then when you go and tell yourself like, hey, I'm not a kook, people are like, no,
you're the one that talked about aliens.
You can't claim you're sane because we've already labeled you as the kook. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
People don't want to destroy their credibility. So when you start looking at these names and stuff like that, they're like, why would I want to attach my name to this story?
Yeah, definitely. If you're coming out, turning around and saying, I'm seeing 2 alien ships a night.
Okay, all right. You want something? Okay, buddy. I'm okay with the fact of being like, if you saw that, fine. Until disproven otherwise, like they do in court, that's what the evidence I'm going to take.
Yeah, and what's interesting with Dulce, New Mexico, especially, is this Paul Benowitz, which was friends with this other guy that actually went into these underground facilities. He had been working with him on he's from Albuquerque and had been working with them on electronic instruments. So, they were coming in. He was like a subcontractor.
Love it. You got to have them. There's more point of note, just a fact of reference here for people. Kirtland Air Force Base here in the local area. Mm-hmm. There's not that many federal workers that actually work here, right? Only a couple thousand. A majority of the labor in this area that works on this Q clearance, higher security stuff are the contractors.
Right.
Boeing, Lockheed, and I forget what the other names are. There's a whole slew of them, but yeah, so go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, and then this Benowitz, which if you've been from Albuquerque a long time, you probably heard about him. He kind of put it out there with Kirkland Air Force Base. There was a Manzano weapons storage area, and I guess that's still there. We don't know, but this was 1980. So this report that was dated October 28, 1980, mentions that Benowitz had taken film of UFOs over Kirtland.
That's correct. So Benowitz also had the CB radio system, and he was scanning and listening to what?
Yes. He was.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm on it now. Now you've churned in the gears. Okay. So Benowitz would listen ahead of time for their radio calls because they didn't think anyone was scanning it. So before a test was going to happen for one of their advanced aircraft or something else, whatever it might be, some sort of weapon, he would know ahead of time.
And both of us aren't from here, so I hope I pronounce this, but I guess these UFOs were being tested in a base underneath the Archuleta Mesa.
Archuleta?
So there's an Archuleta Mesa here in Albuquerque, and that's where there's an underground base there supposedly, and that's where these UFOs are being tested, and they would come up, they had like these magnetic doors that would open up, because the lighting and everything was all magnetic, nuclear. They talked about no shadows.
No shadows is a big deal. Wouldn't you be wigged out like looking in a pocket and like, oh my God, I can see right into that thing, no shadow.
Which we've had multiple. I mean, you sent me a video and I'll post it on the show notes.
Oh, people would be all over that.
People would be on a YouTube video where the guy talks about seeing an alien aircraft. And he was in Area 51. Yep. But he was at White Sands.
White Sands first.
Launched his rocket
all the way over to Groom Lake, Area 51.
Right.
And then from there, his life kind of continued. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but that video we'll post on YouTube with that. But it's interesting that he was actually getting these transmitting signals.
Right.
And then he would know ahead of time. And then
so he knew when to film.
Yeah, he was filming.
He took all of the guesswork.
Mm-hmm. But there was a researcher named William Moore. And so this is interesting, he was the disinformation guy.
Yeah, so William Moore, he worked for the Air Force.
Right.
Oh my God, now I'm feeling this. William Moore worked for the Air Force, so his number one thing was to disinform. So not only did
he was paid by the United States government.
Right.
Let's clarify this.
That's correct. To disinform individuals and information that they might come across.
Right.
So he led this gentleman, Leibowitz? What's his name?
It's Benowitz.
Benowitz.
Right.
He led Benowitz down a path of, I will give you a small amount of truth, right?
Right.
But from that, I'm going to twist and turn it so that you're not really sure what's reality and what isn't.
Right.
So this other gentleman from the Air Force specialized in this. He became a personal confidant of this other individual helping them.
And that's how the government works. If you're onto something,
that's correct.
They're going to pump you. They're going to have somebody come. I mean, the CIA, that's very clear on the tactics. They'll buy you a suit, and then they buy you a nice watch.
Yeah,
and then
we're going to do all this stuff.
They talk about, we're going to do all this stuff together to build you that trust. Right. Build your ego.
And then when we tell you something, guess what?
You're going to believe it.
You're going to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. Wouldn't you do the same thing?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we all would. Yeah.
I like I said, I like talking reasons, so that's the most reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, if somebody pulls up in a black Tahoe.
Yeah.
With a black suit on, looking like Men in Black.
I'm going to look at that guy.
With the aviator shades on.
Yeah.
And they come up and they hand me some so-called top secret documents.
Sure.
I'm going to read those.
Of course I'm going to read it. I don't care if it's real or fake, buddy. If you're going through the trouble to show up dressed like that,
exactly, yeah.
I'll read it. Give it to me. You know what I mean? I'll take it with a grain of salt or sand.
Right, yeah. I mean, if the government's personally feeding you something.
Yeah.
But if they're playing like they're, wanting to get out of the government or release this information. I mean, Snowden had that whole deal. We talked about him earlier.
But let's think about this reasonably again. Why did they get so fired up about it?
Mm-hmm.
Say it wasn't true. Well, you don't give a shit. You just pass it off.
Right.
Why would you have to put in a disinformant if it wasn't true?
Right.
What do you care? What do you care if some dude in Albuquerque, New Mexico is spreading rumors?
Right. Exactly.
You don't care.
Right.
You know? So it's funny that someone extends, they extend those resources. They extend those resources to go handle something like that. And then you're like, wait a minute, what are you trying to do? So that's when the conspiracy thing kind of happens. Like, why are you putting resources to cover something up?
Right.
If it's not true.
Right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, when these people stumble upon truth, you have to expect that's what's going to happen. Because that's the most humane way. Either you're going to just mysteriously you've committed suicide, which we're going to talk about that because a lot of these people are not here with us anymore.
How did you get 2 bullets in the head? I'm sorry, is this the Clinton administration?
Yeah, we whether you're liberal or conservative, either
doesn't
way,
matter.
There was a lot of people that did not vote.
Yeah,
were liberals that did not vote and won. How many people? And we'll have to have a whole thing on that. But how many people committed suicide in that? It was like 7 or 9 or something.
5 plus.
And there was a lot of hangings.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting.
So we're getting into Vatican bankers right now.
No, let's not go there.
Wow.
They had spent 2 years tracking the alien craft.
Yeah.
They got the video with it.
Correct.
They found the alien ship's launch ports. So, I mean, this was like a heavy investigation that was going on between Albuquerque, Kirkland, Los Alamos, and Dulce.
Right.
Which we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but there's supposed to be like an underground railroad system that takes people, like a tram that takes people in those areas. But what I find interesting more than anything on this is when they actually began to interview people that had worked there. And then they talked about there being a level 1 at Dulce, the underground base, there being a level 1, a level 2, a level 3. You know, it's neat to know. So a lot of people would work at the level 1 or the level 2 area.
They're like, what are you talking about? There's other levels?
But they saw on the level 2, a lot of people saw the Air Force, and we're going to get into this. Let's get into this right now.
I'll do it. A
lot of people saw the Air Force burrowing machine.
Like a gopher. It's just like an underground.
It's not a small machine. It's a nuclear subterranean, like a big. How would you explain it?
Can you explain the physics of this thing, please, to the general public here, our populace? You have so the French had originally designed this massive underground drill, so it's a huge cog with teeth on it that sit in the front of it and it spins extremely slow, right? And it's got tracks underneath like a tank, so it can push itself forward as it begins to eat and grind away at this dirt. Well, the issue is when you start looking at the government's one, they're like, okay, we got a problem here. We got a shitload of dirt. What do we do with it? You know what I mean? Well, the easiest thing to do is to change its chemical structure, and that's going to require a lot of heat. So what they did is they start to apply this massive, this nuclear reactor to come in and generate enough heat so that you can get the rock to a molten state so where it turns to glass as you move through it. So you're essentially, it's almost like you're frosting like this cake on the outside of a tunnel the entire way.
And a lot of people wonder, well, what do they do with all the rock and the dirt when they build these underground? You know, like all the amount of dump trucks that would have to come out.
So
this is not the case.
It's not the case.
You're thinking very rudimentary.
You're thinking rudimentary. So as a first stage thing for the government, and I can move into another part of it. Yeah, go ahead, grab it. You're changing the phase state. Yeah, double white, please. We're changing the phase state of our material here, the chemical structure of the rock. And in doing so as you move through, you can then apply that. It's almost like you're laying like a new road underneath you, right? So as you change the phase, it can move through. The atomic structure changes. It's space. You won't have as much dirt or as much debris, but you will have some, right? And then later on, if your technology was a little more advanced, you'd be talking about phasing. So everything has a vibrational structure to it. We'll jump into this real quick. So if the old Vedic text said that it was sound before form when the universe was first formed.
Right.
And if you start looking at the angstroms, and an angstrom is your vibrational frequency of any material object. So like a Bose headphone,
right?
It cancels out your noise, right? It changes the phase state of the noise coming into your ears so that there's nothing. So if that's an immaterial thing like sound, and that has a frequency, the contention would be that I could probably do that with some sort of physical matter. Could I not?
Yeah, you would think.
So if something is vibrating, a rock, granite, at a certain frequency, if I net it out with another wave and change its electrical structure, then it would somewhat disappear or change actually what it is.
That's interesting, yeah.
So I like to think about things like that. So if you look at the technology we have, so we look at sound and how that applies, and if everything vibrates, you could probably apply it to a physical structure. So going back to the drill, the U.S. Air Force owns this drill, and they've used it to dig out these massive tunnels underground. And from the Dulce facility, you see that it walks up to Alamogordo, down to White Sands. It goes to Los Alamos. It goes further up into Denver under the United States Air Force Academy.
Yeah, and there's something with the airport there, too.
The airport's funny. I was walking out of the airport.
You guys have to, if you haven't gone to the Denver International Airport, when you're there next time, you've got to look at the murals.
Do you know I have a picture on the phone? I just took a picture of this mural.
Oh, really?
I swear, I shit you not. It's got an alien on it, I think doing like a peace sign or something, and they're talking about all the conspiracy theories about, under Denver.
They put it in the open.
Yeah, like...
It's like, right out.
But what does that do? Think about that, though.
It makes you think less of.
It devalues it.
Yes, it devalues
it. It decredits it. You go down to Roswell, New Mexico, why, they make it seem like such a joke. It's very difficult to put any hard scientific study towards something like this, actually prove it.
Even though we know we have eyewitness accounts in Roswell that's stating by military officers.
Yes.
This isn't some crazy local people.
No.
I mean, we have accounts, eyewitness accounts. We have newspapers that actually put that there was a craft out there and then were retracted.
You tell me it just got... This is not like the Sun Times you get at like the grocery store checkout with all that like just...
the choir, with Britney Spears on
garbage.
Yeah.
You're talking about a bunch of people that are trying to make a profit, that are incentivized to get readers, right? Mm-hmm. You tell me all these groups are corroborating on someone's story who has some sort of background and some sort of reputation in the local area, and it's all small towns around here, saying that this person is or is not telling the truth?
Right.
They are onto something. Mm-hmm. They are talking about something that a group of people witness in a local area that all know one another.
Yes.
It's very personal to these people.
Very, very personal, especially when you're dealing with like ranchers, families that ranch has been there for over 100 years, great-grandfather. So, I mean, and then they had to eventually sell the ranch.
Right, because what happens...
Because the cattle mutilations were so high.
It gets out of control, right? And then sometimes things get out of your hand, and look what happens. All your cows, your livestock,
Yeah,
the guy's not going to lie about it.
No.
My cows are dying randomly. It's either someone's picking on me or there's an actual alien issue going on here.
But it's not just, and we're going to get into cattle mutilations here in a little bit. I want to stick with, because I actually have on the nuclear Air Force.
Yeah, let's talk about
the United States Atomic Energy Commission and the United States Energy Research and Development Administration. I love the big names that they have to make it like, in the 1970s, I have right here the patents. Yeah. In my hand right here, from 1972, the patent, it makes it very clear, if you read the patent, even for anyone, it's a lining by the hole as dispersal and cracks produced in the surrounding rock. The rock melting drill is of shape and is propelled under sufficient pressure to produce and extend cracks in solid rock radially around the bore by means of hydrostatic pressure developed in the molten rock ahead of the advancing rock drill penetrator.
Correct.
All melt. So how is this rock melting?
That's right. You got to get it. You got to get hot. It's got to be real hot.
So how are we getting it that hot?
So that requires a current nuclear reaction.
Yes, exactly. Now listen to this. This is in the patent that you can get. All melt not used in glass lining the bores forced in the cracks where it freezes and remains.
It's nuts.
So people that were out there saying they would walk through these tunnels and it would look like glass.
Well, that's because all the cracks are filled in.
Right.
Where does water go? The path of least resistance, right? So if you have a liquid form, it's going to go to the areas where there's a void.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so that's when you would have 20, 30 people that were out there saying that they walked in and there was these monster tunnels that were 60 foot wide.
Right.
And it was all looked like glass.
Yeah.
This explains it.
I hope they're all wearing rollerblades, because I'd be just like skating the shit.
Could you imagine
out of those
going
things.
like all around?
I'd be having more fun. I'd be like
anti-gravity.
Screw the science. I'm here to rollerblade.
Yeah, exactly. It would be awesome. No cracks. You wouldn't fall. Yeah,
he never fall.
It'd be perfect. Yeah.
The greatest training ground ever for some form of Olympic sport.
But the reason that they built this is interesting. They said such lining eliminates in most cases the expensive and cumbersome problem of debris elimination. And that's what we talked about earlier.
Remember our last episode we were talking about turtle waste, human waste?
Right.
We create so much fucking waste. Like, we got to do something with it. You know what I mean? And you're telling me you got an object that can do all the construction we need with no waste?
Right.
That's an efficient tool.
Yeah, in the 70s.
I'll put some money into it. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. So you literally think, how many of these machines did they have at the time?
2?
Yeah. And then they kept them here in these areas between Colorado and New Mexico. Between these bases, why wouldn't you not have these?
Why wouldn't you have a connecting tunnel?
Yeah, exactly.
If you got a drill that's big, you have a patent for it, build it, and then from that, hell, why not? Let's build a tunnel. Let's go back and forth.
Yes, exactly. So it can produce large tunnels, this is according to the patent, soft rock or wet, clay, unconsolidated or bouldery earth. So it'll plow through
it's just like stuff that's not like a solid form. I just got a bunch of boulders hanging out.
And then it says in here thermal melting, a boundary kerf. I don't know what that word is. Kerf into the tunnel face and forming a supporting excavation whale liner by deflecting the molten materials against the excavation walls to provide, when solidified, a continuous wall supporting liner.
Oh, got it. All right. So I understand. So what it's doing is
put this into everybody else.
So what it's doing is it's creating an arch. So if you're walking into like an old church, you got an arch, right? So as this thing pushes forward, it cools the material, which will settle in the center and at the bottom because you have gravity, and it'll move that molten material up so that it fills in all those gaps as it moves. So it's constantly moving and resettling everything in an even tone. That's all it's saying. It's creating a big wide arch, and it's resettling all that molten rock as it moves forward.
That's amazing.
That's it.
Yeah. It just amazes me. And we talked about the SR-71 before.
Hold on. I'm readjusting now.
And how all that, people, if you go to the Boeing Museum in Seattle, you can see an SR-71 sitting out there.
Right.
And you look at that and it looks like something from Batman.
Correct.
And all that technology was invented when?
This was invented in the early 50s.
Think about that. The 1950s. Mad Men. We've all seen the show.
Slide rule. Yeah. We were trying to figure out how to advertise aspirin. And was
there a pocket calculator then?
No, the pocket calculator didn't happen until much later.
Yeah, I love Tandy.
Yeah.
That was when Radio Shack was a thing. That was my favorite store.
I love Radio Shack.
I know. I loved going to Radio Shack when I was little.
I'm nerded out right now thinking about it. You know?
You remember the newspaper and they would have because I had the first Tandy computer. My dad bought me one.
No way.
So I had to put the floppy disk in and because they had different ones, I think. I'm trying to remember the number. I have such a bad memory. But my dad actually worked over and we were lower middle class. So this was a big investment.
That's a big gift.
Yeah.
He must have Jason, he must have really cared about you.
No, he it was pretty selfish.
It was totally,
because he was into it just as much as I. We would fight over times that we could be on there. Yeah.
I love that. I only started off in the Apple II, so you had some years on me, but.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see the whole dynamic of that process. So the computer's on the SR-71. You had mentioned that before.
Yeah, the computer's real cool. So this is not a conspiracy. So you look at, there was only a select few pilots that could fly this thing, right? You got to tow it out there. It's got a certain amount of balance. It's leaking its fuel right on the tarmac. When this plane was ready to take off, right? I fly airplanes. It takes a lot of concentration to make sure from a safety standpoint that you're at the right angle of attack, altitude, speed. There's nothing coming at you. You don't have birds. You don't have other planes. You're on the radio. You're checking the radar. Is my trajectory correct? All this is going on, right?
Right.
Not to mention your weather. You're telling me, I'm only flying at 120 miles an hour, ground speed. You're talking about a plane that's flying Mach 2.7 fast, right? You want that to be a spy plane because you got to take photos with it. I know how difficult it is to fly a plane at 125. I could not imagine the difficulty of flying a plane while I'm going well past the sound barrier twice.
And how do you take accurate photos?
You take accurate photos.
From the 1950s.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to something, right? So what they had to design is the plane needed a autopilot system to handle when you needed to take the photos, somebody had to fly. It didn't matter if there were two people in the cockpit. One man's manning this thing, right? And it's a tight plane, and you're up there for quite a long time. So this trash can-sized computer, almost like a little R2-D2. Have you seen Star Wars? He kind of sits in the back of the X-Wing.
Yeah.
Kind of the same function, right? So this trash can-sized...
They didn't have cute noises or anything.
No, there were no cute noises. No, I wish. It had a personality to it,
Now we could do that.
No, we could do that now. But back in the day, so before this thing would take off, like I said in our previous episode, in under 2 minutes, this system, this computer, had the ability to triangulate where the craft was, right? The XR-71 Blackbird, on the tarmac, geopositioned in the world so that if it was going to fly, it could have an autopilot system. And that could do that in complete overcast cloud coverage. So that in alone is an amazing feat, right? It's the fact to have a computer that could do that in a time when we were using punch cards and IBM computers that were the size of a room. Now, before the plane would take off, gentlemen would show up in, like you would say, that black Tahoe in the black suits, right? Unnamed individuals. And you have the pilots in the cockpit, right? Pilot and co-pilot. They would load the computer into the plane. Then the plane would take off. And when it would land, before those guys were allowed to get out, that car would show up again and that computer would be removed from the aircraft. So you're talking about a highly functioning autopilot computer that was in an airplane in the late 50s, before IBM was a thing and our big supercomputers.
Right.
Using the punch cards, and we were trying to figure out how to get people on the moon. We're trying to figure out how to get people on the moon using just basic trigonometry and
We're going to get into that.
I'm all about the moon. We're getting there. You have a computer in this system that is so freaking advanced. You're taking people around the world. So at Mach 2 plus whatever, they can take photos of a Russian license plate 60,000 feet up in the sky.
In the 1950s.
In the 1950s.
I don't think people grasp that.
I don't. Because they didn't live in the 1950s.
But here's my question, because we always get to the why.
I love the why.
Simon Sinek did the whole thing on the why.
Yeah, let's start with why, right? Yeah.
So where do we get that technology from?
No, I'm so happy you asked, right? So if we look at the Roswell crashes and everything, right? Or the San Antonio crash. Here's an easier example. Screw that. Conquistadors. Conquistadors came over and they were checking out America, Central America. They were looking for gold, right? They're looking for these resources they can bring back to Spain, right? To show the monarchs, all this great discovery. We can claim this land. This is us. This is what we do. When you show up to a group of people and you bring technology that's never before seen, and say you kill one of them, right? And you start looking at his armor, his plate mail and his sword and a gun and gunpowder, you begin to learn. Mm-hmm. You reverse engineer and you begin to adopt that technology, right? Like Vietnam, we adopted the tactics of the guerrilla warfare after the Vietnamese used it on us. Right. So if you're looking at the technology of the XR-71 Blackbird, where does it come from?
Yeah, so how do we make such a leap?
How do you make such a leap?
From the 40s to the 50s with that aircraft.
And then how from that aircraft to now, there's been no significant leap. Has there?
No.
You had
not that we know of.
You had the Condor for, not that we know of. We had the Condor for corporate travel.
Magnetic propulsive aircraft that puts out little green, the Aurora or whatever.
The TR-3 Aurora with it.
Yeah, something TR-3? Like that. And it goes...
Yeah, it's like a triangle or something that. Ion propulsion.
Right.
Cool stuff. We can get into that after slip, at the medium.
We need more beers. If we're
we need a couple more beers for that. But if we're looking at this technology, right, like Velcro, fiber optics, printed circuit boards, you tell me that shit just showed up.
Right.
So if you look at our learning curve and how we're creating things from grinding wheat crops, right?
Yes.
And cattle and plows.
Right.
So that
was the 30s. People don't realize.
They don't get that.
What happened in 20 years?
This is in a 20-year jump. You've gone from, the
Great Depression.
We have Great Depression, no digitization of everything.
Right.
We're at the ass end of the Industrial Revolution, right? Heavy amounts of iron, hard physical labor.
Right.
And now we're moving into this digital age very early. Onset of thorium. You look at the 1953.
Titanium.
Yeah, 1953 Encyclopedia Britannica. It had a page on nuclear reactions and the use of thorium for sustained nuclear reactions so that you could have a small reactor at your house. That edition was reneged and taken out, and all the pages were stripped from all libraries across the United States after it was published, because they found that the issue with nuclear technology with a sustained nuclear reaction was solved at that point. Our energy problem was solved in 1953, and they tried to strip it from the books. And you can look at it. Go look up one of the encyclopedias, look for that page. You'll see that there's a gap between, this one and that one when you get to thorium reactors. But besides the point, where does the technology come from the XR-71? The conspiracy theorists think that when the planes or the UFOs or whatever aircraft happen to land that's above that technology, you adopt it. You reverse engineer it, right? That's how you get into, who's that guy with the big Coke bottle glasses that, Steve...
I know who you're talking about. Oh.
Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know why I said Steve.
He was here in Los Alamos.
He was here in Los Alamos.
Had a jet car.
As a contract. He had a cool jet car. He was big into jets.
Yeah.
But you're talking about reverse engineering technology that was unaccustomed to you, but you begin to learn from it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the conquistador effect. What do we do with farming, animal husbandry? There are these massive jumps and leaps and bounds of technology that just show up out of the blue. There's no consistent growth pattern to it.
No.
Which means that some sort of catalyst, whatever it might be, had to have shown up as an externality, right? Let's take a prime example of you, Jason. If something happens in your life that gives you an epiphany, right?
Right.
You were going on a steady growth pattern until something changed your trajectory.
Right.
And at that point, you begin to learn and you change your course of action. And you could have a massive amount of growth because you didn't have that piece of information before.
Right.
Now you have
exactly.
it, right? So it would only make sense that if we have this technology to build this type of jet with a slide roll, with twin Pratt Whitney engines, to have this thing fly so fast, take photos so quickly with so much clarity at such a height, there must be some sort of gap in that technology. And that was in the 50s. That was 70 years ago. Think about the jump that might have happened from the 50s to the 70s. Now we're talking about nuclear-powered drills.
Right.
Right? And now you're talking about, okay, we can fly fast, we can do all this good stuff. Now we have the amount of nuclear energy to change the chemical structure of hard material here on the Earth so we can dig underground tunnels. And then we can move into our trams, and we can do all these other great things.
And I know Elon Musk talked about that. He talked about, to solve traffic problems in big cities, build tunnels
it's a traffic.
with these. Yeah.
That's exactly what What is traffic? It's an inefficient use of roads, right? And the fact that there's no consistency.
That we're still laying down asphalt. That still amazes me.
Do you want to know? Do you want to know why? Do we have to get into this? All right. So just because we lay down asphalt, we have so much invested in the infrastructure of refining and fracking of petroleums, right? So the waste product at the very bottom, you get tar. Someone's got to do something with it. You stop using asphalt. That's a massive loss for these companies that are refining oil, right? So they're going to continue, they're incentivized to continue to use it because they've invested so much in it in the first place. There are way better materials that we have to be driving on. Safer ones. You got solar panel roads, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Oh yeah, no, I saw this amazing material that they had on a YouTube video, and they were showing it when it rained and how it could absorb all the rain.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Because,
it would just absorb it right into the ground through it and wouldn't, leak out chemicals or anything.
Right. Because if you look at roads, there's a couple different types of when you lay tarmac. You have like popcorn roads and stuff like that, depending on the layers. So when they were originally laying roads in the U.S., they had an idea that you could make a porous road so that the rain would come through and drain out.
Right.
What happens over time when you get a bunch of like detritus or like material that fills those pockets? Water sits on top.
Yeah, it sits on top, right.
So you have all these interesting things that happen, and we figure it out over time. And that's a natural course of learning from our mistakes. But when you're talking about huge changes in technology, that's a catalyst of introduction that you didn't have before.
Right. So something came here.
That's correct.
And we haven't had that. I mean, because if you really look at it, from the advent of Apple, Microsoft, Google, we even get into Facebook now, and we're getting into your arena of your company. But when you get into that, we really haven't had in 10 years, we haven't had anything super crazy.
No, and you have a throttled release of information and technology. Right.
Is the government throttling that, or do you think it is? Well, I mean, if we go with the conspiracy of aliens, do you think that maybe that release was too heavy in the 50s?
I'm glad you're asking that, because this is of my own personal opinion here. When you're in the previous episode, we talked about technology and the human spirit.
Right.
So when we're creating things, you would hope that it has a good intention to it, right?
Right.
If we are releasing...
Google just called me, by the way.
Yeah, they're probably...
That was Mountain View, California. That was
they
Google.
totally...
770?
That was Google calling.
That was Google calling us right now, guys.
Can you stop...
And we had a knock on the door earlier, too.
Can you stop fucking talking about us? Yeah, I'm going to get a commando blown through this roof up here in a second.
Yeah, I don't know how long we're going to last on this. We're going to keep going until...
Right. So I've thought about this. So
can we say, like all the other people, we did not commit suicide?
Yeah, we did not commit suicide. If there's 2 bullets in my head, it wasn't me.
Or piano wire around me.
Yeah, anything like that.
Even though I like that. That's kind of cool, the artistic part of it.
It's very artistic.
Yeah, if you're going to take me out in like a... What was that movie with the where the girl came in and she was taking out these douchebags and they just...
Come on. Can you give me a little bit more specific?
It's like a Swedish series. People are going to say it on here on the live.
They're gonna know.
But no, it's like like this girl would come in and she would take out all these like rich douchebags that were like abusing women and like the spider or something.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. But I mean, the last one she did, she like strung a guy up and he was hanging up naked, and then she transferred all his money to his wife.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
So at least do me kind, like do something good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You kill me, don't make it lame.
Yeah,
I'm too intelligent.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not trying to. This is not an ego thing, but I'm too intelligent to go out just like I'm gonna put a bullet in my head.
No, make it artistic.
Yeah, let's do something a little bit more.
Against the wall, and then take
make me look like a picture. Jackson Pollock painting in this place. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't want to go out with.
But so if we go back to this, right? So if you're talking about, say, the aliens are withholding the technology, right, preventing us from having it. Look at how we've used nuclear technology. Are we at a spiritual understanding of ourselves and understanding of each other to take on this technology, which can do massive amounts of good and also massive amounts of bad, right? Mm-hmm. So when you release it, you'd have to hope that people are in an evolutionary path at a point where they can handle and use this for a greater good,
a higher conscience
than a greater or more substantial,
for either monetary gain or military gain.
Correct.
That's what's happening now.
So it's monetary and military, right?
Right.
So if you're looking at really high technology and you release it to the public, oh, well, hey, you better hope they're going to do some good with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can't release things too quick. So let's consider something here. And this is always a fun one to consider from an emotional...
People playing God.
Yeah, from an emotional standpoint. Say, for instance, they solved the energy issue back in 1953.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Think about all of the resources that would have been saved at that point. Think about the planetary resources, financial resources, time resources of people, right? Because we don't have to worry about energy.
Right.
Everybody could have their own micro farm. Everybody can open up their own hospital. You have all the time to figure out all these other things that you typically wouldn't be able to do.
Your own monetary system.
Yeah, you have your
not funded by the government.
You wouldn't have a government-funded monetary system, right? Because the energy is now in the hands of the people.
Right.
And then from that, you also have another problem.
Tesla had that.
Right. But if you release this info, you know what that means? That means you had it for quite some time. And you've been working on it. So then you're like, wait a minute. You had all this technology to create all this free energy to heal people beyond what we thought was possible.
Right.
You're telling me my mother died of cancer?
Yes.
You're telling me my grandmother died of some sickness that
because I remember
handle?
Obama when he came out with the State of the Union, he's like, we're going to cure cancer.
So consider that.
Like did he know that?
Right. So say it was cured, right? Think about the blowback you would receive.
From Big Pharma.
From Big Pharma. Think about the blowback from individuals. People would riot. You can't, because there's been such a gap in the release of technology, if you begin to release it now without the actual spiritual development and understanding, you would have a lot of problems. You have a lot of problems. You lose control.
Because I think we're at that level, and we're going to have another podcast about consciousness.
Podcast, yeah.
But I think we're at that level could we, and we're struggling with this with racism, with the Holocaust, with things that are going on. I'm getting deep right now, but I think it's important.
No, this is good.
That can we forgive? And
that is the largest thing. So in forgiveness, right?
And I want to clarify this because we have two white people that are talking that are privileged.
I'm absolutely. I do not deny the fact that I was geographically and privileged just from roll the dice where I was born.
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. Roll the dice, whatever. So when we're looking and we're talking, because I want to make sure I clarify this, because I always want to put myself in other people's shoes, even though I can't because I haven't walked in that.
Correct.
I haven't walked in that. I haven't had where those studies where they put African American names. Yeah. On applications,
sure,
that are super highly qualified.
Why not charge them a higher interest rate?
And then, Nissan did that, Toyota did that.
Correct. Yeah.
Or they put them before like a Goldman Sachs company or whatever, and there's a Jim Smith.
Who's going to get hired?
But the person that has the Moesha name is more qualified, but because of her name, they automatically dismiss the application.
Oh, my God.
So, we have this dynamic that's right now.
We can't even step over that, right?
Right.
And I want to think that there's a higher technology out there. And I have a feeling that the problems are solved.
Right.
Because we solved a lot of stuff in the 50s, right? And even like the late 40s. So they would love to give us this information, this technology, but there's select few that want to continue that power. But on the other fact of it is a lot of people that truly aren't ready to receive that sort of technology.
Well, do you think that power that would, let's say the aliens are real and they have a power that is, 10 times greater than what we have.
Correct.
And it has to do with artificial intelligence, let's say, because we've had leading scientists out there that said that artificial intelligence, if that's a point that we could build the computers, the supercomputers that we need, that we could solve environmentalism. Like these computers could solve these problems.
Of course they could
solve
solve
one of the top scientists who lives in Singapore.
Well, no, hold on. They could tell you how to solve it. The only person that solves it is humanity. So go ahead, continue.
But when you look at that information that's given, it would have to be given to the public freely, not given to a specific government organization.
Or a private corporation.
Right. Or a private corporation, even bigger.
We'll give you a little bit of this info so that you can continue to develop and do the things you do.
Right.
And maintain a status quo of what's going on. Because this goes back to Plato and Democritus, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're talking about two different philosophies where either you trying to arrest the change or stop the change of the universe and how things function, or you understand that there's a natural chaos to it, and within that chaos there's an order and you let it flow. Right now we're trying to bottleneck everything. And the second you let that begin to flow again, there's going to be some chaos. It's like a big J-curve before people become comfortable, before they're like, okay, we understand you've screwed us for so long. Right. People are going to be mad.
And people are feeling that right now.
They're feeling it.
But then there's a sense of entitlement and security that they don't want to have the upheaval in.
That's correct. So, it's a strange...
And that's your generation.
It's my generation. So it's a strange balance of give me everything, but don't give me too much at once.
Right.
And it's a weird, schizophrenic... way of looking at the world.
Because you can see it. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was talking last night to somebody, and we were talking about Snapchat.
Sure.
I'm single, so not a big deal.
Yeah.
Snapchat's cool, whatever. But it reveals the intention of the person. It's just all it is an app.
That's all it is.
And then it deletes your texts or deletes the pictures.
Right.
It's actually a pretty cool security thing if you wanted to talk to people and share information.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're doing with the information, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it reveals the intention of the heart of the person that's using it.
Well, yeah, it does.
I mean, because we like to go big bad government, but then at the same time,
what about us?
What about us individually?
You got to look at you. Remember the last episode?
We're doing the same thing.
We were talking about Tartle and everything. We got to look at the internal reflection of you, right? So you're worrying about that data. Well, listen, sell your data, reflect on you. Like this is what we're doing. Tartle.co.
That's your company, by the way.
Yeah, that's my company, Tartle.co.
Let's do a shameless plug right now.
Shameless plug.
Let's talk about Tartle.
Tartle allows you to take your information, load up your social profiles, and sell your data about you anonymously online. And now for the other side, the people that want to buy that info, they're worried about figuring out what demand is. They have research prerogatives, so they want to get that information directly from the source. So a data buyer can buy that information from the source, which is you, the people that create it. So it puts the power of your data, your control, your information, the way you think, back in the hands of you, the user, and you can make some money with it. You can be your own bank. Be your own sovereign
for your
individual.
data. So when you're sending out, we're on Instagram Live right now.
Yeah.
So there's data that's going to them.
Data that's pumping
right
out.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
Only to Instagram.
Right.
Other people want to buy that data. So
right.
you now have the option to sell that information you're creating on one platform to many parties rather than a single
one.
So
I wanted to talk to you about something because I had a conversation about you with your company with somebody else.
Was
and they
it
were talking,
flattering?
Yeah, it was flattering. And the question they brought up was that medical data would be worth a lot of money.
That's exactly right. So one of my big things was HIPAA, right?
Right.
So when you and I are having a transaction,
right?
Okay, if I had a problem with my knee or I had a hip replacement, Jason, I can share that information with you right now. There's no problem. That's our exchange. Okay, that's our agreement.
And with the doctor,
yeah,
there's a HIPAA agreement, right?
There's a HIPAA agreement. But now from a doctor wants to transmit that information to another doctor or a nurse or another hospital or research facility, somebody has to sign off on that.
Right.
So rather than go through 3 or 4 or 5 steps on a roundabout process, if I want to give up my medical information about me,
for a certain amount of money.
For a certain amount of money.
Right.
That's correct. I can immediately relinquish that information when I choose to do so to another party that's willing to buy it.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about HIPAA because I'm the person who's talking about me. I created this. This was me. This is my health information.
Right.
I can give it away when I want to.
Right.
I can talk about it when I want to. And in doing so, if I can get paid for it, that's a nice incentive.
And then also give an environmentally conscious company the information that they need to be able to say, oh, okay, well, we are having side effects with this.
We are having side effects.
I didn't realize when we did a survey over these 200,000 people that, 50,000 of them are experiencing this.
Of course. And we would have had no idea.
Right.
We say you're Patagonia, they're all eco-friendly, everything. Right. Wouldn't they want to know if they're producing too much material? Because they're guessing, should we make it in this color or this color? Do people like this fabric, this fabric? Just ask them directly. And then if you really want to be environmentally friendly, you make only exactly what you need. You finally know
what the demand is, right?
What the demand is.
Right. So you supply just that demand.
That's correct.
Right.
So if you
It's not like Kylie Jenner where she can release a makeup line, she's always sold out.
And it's always sold out, right? But she has no sense she really has no sense for demand, right?
This is so crazy to me.
No, it is crazy.
Like everything's sold out all the time.
That's amazing. Well, you can
and I'm a billionaire.
Limit your production.
How old is she?
She's younger than you. Something. Yeah, she's younger than me.
Yeah.
Limit your production.
Yeah.
Same thing De Beers does with diamonds. Conspiracy theory. There's another plug. But
isn't the number one diamond? It's not Africa, isn't it? Isn't there is it India?
Yeah, India's got so many raw materials. It'd blow your top. You see the gold that they house in their temples for their gods. There's over 50,000 gods, or what I would consider an avatar, or like a superhero is how they describe it in India. But anyway,
you want to get into that?
Yeah, hold on.
Now you got me into when I went there, the temple where it's like the female side and the male side, and the male side is submitting to the female, and the female is submitting to the male.
Hold on, let's backtrack. Let's backtrack for a second. So anyway, if you're looking at the HIPAA thing, people have the ability to relinquish their data, sell it when they want to. You control that information.
Right.
Don't forget that. And from an introspective look for the spirit of the human people to be like, are we willing to accept this technology? Are we ready for it? Take the second to look. It's beyond Snapchat. It's beyond advertising. You finally have a sense for what you do, what you think, where you are, what it's worth. And on the other side, people have a clear sense of demand. And demand determines choice.
But I want to get to the point to where using data just for more than our consumeristic. I mean, how do we get to that level? Because right now, that's where we're at.
No, that's where we're at.
Whether you look at Google or Facebook or the military complex or any of that, everything is being used. And they even said that, like Facebook and Google has more, and these peeps are going to come running through the ceiling here in a second.
They're going to fall through the roof. Yeah.
But when you think about it, I mean, that's what it is. It's all to produce. Snapchat just beat their earnings big time.
Sure.
Because they're figuring out their ads the way that they should.
Hold on. Stop right there before you continue with that thought. They figured out their advertisements.
Right.
They didn't figure out demand.
No.
They did not figure out a social or environmental issue. They figured out their ads. Isn't that? Don't you find that?
And that's what it's based on.
It's sad.
It's almost rudimentary. It's the 1930s.
Yeah, it's the 1930s. It's not. Right. We're not looking above. We're not.
Right.
We're not extending our thought, our consciousness, our spirit to apply it to these greater things, to do a greater purpose.
Right.
So going back to our Dulce and the underground facility and the technology, the XR71, all those things. If you're talking about releasing things like that, you have to throttle it because you can clearly see how we're acting right now is not. It's not at the point of where we should be to receive that type of data.
Well, I think what we're going to do, Alex, we're going to take a break real quick.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because we've had a lot of beers. So there's a restroom or whatever.
Yeah.
We've gone pretty good amount. I think we've gone over an hour. But I think we're going to do another one.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah, and I want to do a little bit more. We got into Dulce, but we haven't got into. We got to get into the Nazis.
We'll transition.
Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, we'll have a nice, solid fascist transition.
Yes. Yeah. Our fascist company with the mute gray.
Yeah, I'm going to come back in. Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Yeah, that'll be perfect. So we're going to get back. We're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back with the Albuquerque Business Podcast.
Join us this week for another episode of the Albuquerque Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week, he interviews leading local business leaders that inspire the vision and spirit in every entrepreneur, discussing strengths, weakness, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together to fulfill a shared vision of a new future for Albuquerque. Listen or download this Sunday afternoon at 4 from your favorite podcasting app.
This podcast is brought to you by Tartle, the world's only digital identity exchange, where you can anonymously control and sell your data. What's your data worth? Find out for free at tartle.co.
And we're back with the After Dark Albuquerque Business Podcast. We're on Instagram Live. We just went live. We just had a whole hour of New Mexico conspiracy theories.
Right.
We went into cattle mutilation.
Yep.
We went into the Dulce base. We went into Los Alamos. We went into Kirkland Air Force Base. We
nuclear
went into
drills.
UFOs.
Nuclear drills.
Yeah, nuclear drills.
Yep.
We went into Roswell.
Yes, we did.
And so I kind of want to go bigger picture.
Global.
Yeah, I want to go global because I feel like people need to understand exactly. So what we're going to talk about right now is not a conspiracy theory.
No.
This is fact.
This is fact.
You can look this up. If you don't believe it, you can look this up on Google. You can go to NASA's website.
Sure.
And look this up. Let's start off with, and I want to go right into this because we have the Holocaust and the horrific things that happened. So World War II hits.
Correct.
Hitler starts to see that there's, now does he get alien technology? How does that all start off? Why is he wanting to make aircraft?
So I'm really glad you asked. Okay, so Hitler was a wallpaper hanger when he first got going before he wrote Mein Kampf, right? So My Struggle. And so before his fascist dogma began to come out and he started to grow a party, he was really interested in what was the highest, most supreme part of a human being, right? So who is of the highest intelligence, the highest genetics? What is the most optimal people? That's why he had like the Hitler Youth and things of that nature, right? Because we're trying to train what he thought was the best people in his lens, his perspective.
Right.
Now, in doing so, Hitler was always looking for the next level, right? And you'll find this with many people like Einstein, Tesla, Hitler. They will do things that are somewhat of the, I would say, spiritual or occult manner.
Right, yeah. I mean, we know that with Hitler.
Right.
He was heavily in the occult.
He was heavily into the occult. So his contention was when he was looking at history, so the Nazis were going around and they were taking up all these artifacts from across the globe.
Right.
Imperialism is like a big thing. So how far can we stretch our reach and try and gain this power? And when you begin to find that you have an obsession with theological writings or the Vedic scripts, which talk about I think they're called the Vahama or some sort of, Indian floating vehicle, a UFO of sorts.
Right. Magic carpets.
He made a connection that there must be some sort of weight behind what these people were creating, right? Is there a truth behind it?
Right.
So over the course of his journey of studying and the artifacts that they collected, he becomes entangled with this group called the Thule Society. Right?
Thule.
Thule.
Like
almost like a Thule.
No. It's
like I put on my car.
Yeah, Thule. Yeah, you have on top of your Subaru, right?
Well, it's Scandinavian.
We know.
Right?
You have a Subaru, so we know.
I love
a green Subaru. Like
I have a green
forest
Subaru.
Green.
Forest green.
So you hug trees.
Yeah, listen, you got to love a tree sometime, all right? And I got long hair, I got it all going on right now. Granola. But so he gets involved with a society that's somewhat occult, right? Because he's looking for that extra piece of knowledge, that advantage that sits beyond war, right?
Right.
This is a spiritual advantage to prove to himself, which he believed was a contending theory, that the Germans were of a supreme race and intelligence.
Right.
Right. And that's what he was.
We don't realize this.
Tell me.
I want people to know this and understand this. Our scientists in the early 1900s and 1920s, eugenics.
That's right.
That we had here.
We did in the United States.
We were like measuring skulls
That's
to
right.
see if they were ape-like.
Go to the Harvard one. They say that just because the shape of the skull and what they would say of an African American, right, was of a lesser intelligence because of the design of the skull, or Jewish.
That was here before 1940s. This was in the 20s.
That was before the 1940s.
You had eugenic scientists, and you would go to a state fair.
Oh yeah,
and they could measure you and see if you were more pure.
Right.
So everybody thinks it started with Hitler, but
no, it doesn't. It goes. Listen, it goes further back in the U.S. Everybody's always trying to see what is the most pure, right? I mean, you know the term. What was that shitty show on ABC called Seventh Heaven?
Oh yes, yeah.
Where does that term come from?
Seventh Heaven.
Right. Great. Glad you just asked, right? So you're like, ponder. So when you look at the seventh heaven, they felt that there were multiple stages that brought you closer to God or the source energy, right? Mm-hmm. So the seventh heaven was the last step before eighth, and eighth was when you combine yourself with God, you're back at the source.
Right.
So everybody at some time always thought that there was a measurement of the soul, right? And then later when we started getting our, like de facto Western science, like, okay, how do we take a physical aspect to measuring the soul and its purity and things like that? As we start looking at the skull, intelligence, African Americans, Jewish people, and then the fascists take over it after the eugenic studies, things of that nature. So Hitler gets involved with this group, and there's this. She is a stone cold fox. This woman, have you seen her?
Who?
She's the one who led this group, right?
The Thule group.
Oh my God, this woman was beautiful.
So he looked at her. So she was kind of the Cleopatra.
She was the Cleopatra. She was the seer, is what I would describe it. So if you go back to the Greeks. Right. It wasn't the kings who had the power. It was the seers.
The seers, yeah.
Because the seers were the ones that would determine
They were the ones
prophecy.
that would tell. Yeah, we saw that in Game of Thrones.
So you see it in Game of Thrones, you see it in anything else, right? And it's funny that the occult groups always keep showing up. So anyway, he would sit here with his group of occult people, and they would try and channel, right, a medium of information coming from. So through this lady, they would gather extraterrestrial information for designs of an aircraft.
So the seer was the one that was in tune with
whatever
aliens.
That group might be.
Right. Whether we want to put it as, some people put it as in a Judeo-Christian, they would put it as, what do they call it, Nephilim?
Yes.
Which would be demons, or aliens, or whatever you call it. I mean, the Bible's full of aliens.
People, of course it is.
Right.
When you talk about, it's not one God, if you look at the original translation after it came out of Hebrew, you realize that it's a plural, and it's a council.
Right.
People don't understand that.
You have Elohim, which is the
Elohim. That's right.
Which is a
that's funny. I study Hebrew, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I have a degree in theology, so
Adonai Haaretz, things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we start looking at this, so she is channeling this information from some sort of extraterrestrial group.
Right.
And with that, they start getting pieces of these drawings, and Hitler now believes he's onto something. That he can create some sort of craft which can move him closer of a higher spiritual consciousness to this more advanced group that sits in the stars, right?
Was he looking at developing a military complex himself in a bad way, or was he looking at it in furthering his race?
He was furthering his race and his own personal egotistical goal.
Right. Okay.
So he's like, if I now have this information,
right,
I'm in tune with the occult, I have this information from extraterrestrials, which I firmly believe in, right, and I can take this info to create a craft because I now have the resources because I am the fascist dictator of a large country.
Right.
And I can assimilate all these things.
Operating at 100%.
Operating at 100%. I've taken all these materials and old theosophical scripts from all across the globe. I'm going to combine all that info and I'm going to create a craft. So they created this thing, right? And you can look it up. It's called De Glocken. And De Glocken.
De Glocken.
There you go.
So if you Google it,
that's that terrible German
That's
accent.
the actual, what we would consider a UFO.
Right. It was
what we considered a UFO, it was a craft that Hitler built. That's physical.
Correct. That's correct. So he took I'm going to say Vahamas. I'm not sure what the Indian word, the Vedic word is for, the Sanskrit word for the flying vehicles.
Right.
He combined those blueprints with the early German studies on water technology and anti-gravity that certain people had because they were studying how salmon swam upriver. How do salmon just happen to float up a stream? They can't jump that high up a waterfall.
No.
So they had to figure out there was certain vortex pressures that happen, right? So they looked at how the vortices, how vortices affect gravity, and then they combined that with the information they got from his occult groups. He was channeling that info to design the thing called the Glocken, the bell, which is what it translates to in German. Now, on the inside of it, they took large amounts of mercury, and they pumped a shitload of high voltage through it. And in doing so, they thought that it would create some sort of electromagnetic field with the vortices so that it could repel the ions that happen on the Earth so you can create some sort of lift with your craft. All right? So it's like, you ever put two magnets together? They kind of repel if you have the same side. Imagine that, but you spin it. So, they kind of slip to one side, like back and forth. If you spin it and you focus that concentration of electromagnetism in a certain direction, you get an even spread. So you can control where that propulsion actually happens. So if the Earth, if we go back to our earlier part of the podcast, we were talking about the U.S. Geological Service and the Navajos, and that geomagnetic center that comes out of the Earth pumps out all this magnetism. And this magnetism helps with your gravity. It's going to hold you down, right? So if you can create a craft that repels that and pushes it in the opposite direction against it in a controlled manner, you create lift. Lift without sound, lift without forward propulsion. You have your anti-gravity. So that's what he was interested in. So let me
ask you this. I don't want to interrupt you, but because this is a prelude to our next podcast. So, and we're just going to do a real quick side note. And we're going to go back into this aircraft, this UFO that Hitler invented. We know that Native Americans were in tune to this.
Correct.
We know that there is a magnetic pull. We know that in certain areas of the world, it's stronger than other places.
That's correct.
How do we as individuals tap into that?
How do you tap into it? So that's great. So your body. So let's look at the MRI machine. MRI is a massive magnet. It's pulling around on that water, your water molecules in your body. So from right there, here's your first stance of science, right? An MRI is a super strong magnet, and it's moving your water molecules so that it can map an image of internally what's happening in your organs in your body, and you can feel it, right? To a certain extent. Why wouldn't you be able to feel that energy, which is an even larger magnet, which is the Earth, these geomagnetic areas that you could probably find and map out like the Navajo.
Like I know Sedona.
Like Sedona, right?
That's
like
close.
Sedona.
People can go to Sedona.
They call it like a vortex, right? Or you go to Arkansas, we have the huge crystal beds and things like that. So there's a way to tap into it, but it's not of a technical or scientific form that we have. It's just a natural, organic Earth energy that comes out. So going to those areas, you can feel the difference. When you walk into a room and your hair kind of stands up, or you feel like a wash of energy that comes over your body when you become uncomfortable.
Yes.
Or when you go to meet someone and you're just something about them is like offsets you.
You've known them for...
You've either known them for a long time or you don't know the stranger, but something about it turns your gut. That's an impulse, a feeling that you would feel that when you were going over some sort of this like electromagnetic area, right?
So you're feeling their negative energy.
You're feeling the negative energy.
Say it that way.
Right. If we were to call it negative, right? But if you're looking at some sort of strong polarity that comes out of the Earth, you just have to become more sensitive with yourself, right? You have to understand how you feel internally so that when these small, really faint changes happen, that you can pick up on it.
It's being self-aware of that. And there's a development process to that.
That's correct. And that would be almost the highest intelligence because you know yourself so well that you can now feel the outside environment to a greater extent, the subtleties of these much finer energies that right now we're coarse and we're very raw to and we don't pick up on. But when you start to pick up on it, you start to feel the flow. You'll know these areas. Now, what if
a society would do that?
If a whole society would do that, if you could pick up on those subtle energies, you'd have a better understanding of people's emotions, right? Because emotions are a heavy amount of energy. And we're talking about something subtle, which is geomagnetic stuff. So if I can pick up on someone's emotions, you're really going to think twice before you say something. There would be a large change in the interaction between who we are as individuals.
Well, I mean, imagine going to, how many times we've had where we've sat across a table from a country.
Yes.
I mean, here recently we had a president that sat across the table. Whether you like him or not, he got to the point to where he sat across the table from a hardcore, nuclear, ready to go.
Fascist.
Yes, dictator.
Yeah.
And he sat across the table from him and he's had meetings with him and he's walking with him and everything else.
I don't care if you love or hate the guy. He got to a point that we weren't at before.
No, I have to agree 100%.
You know?
I mean, he's...
I haven't done it. Like, honestly, kudos. I'm not there sitting in front of the guy. I am not solving that problem. And if he has the resources to sit in front of that individual, good luck. Please, by all means.
But I mean, when you're sitting across from somebody like that is solely ingrained in, and I'm going to, for lack of better terms, I'm going to call it negative energy. How does that translate to how you can Can you change that?
It's not a matter of changing. So when you try and change that energy, you are not accepting the fact that someone is a sovereign spirit or sovereign being. Okay?
That's good. I like that.
You are trying to take your power and your spirit and you're trying to overcome some other energy rather than working with it, forgiving that individual for what they've done. Right? And moving with it to try and almost guide that energy rather than overtake it.
But I think that's at the end of the day, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
As a society, especially here in the United States, where we're looking at all this change. We had a president run on change.
Big on change.
Yeah. We're looking at changing instead of allowing it to forgive it, to accept it. And then the thing that gets me, Alex, and I want you to talk about this more, and then we're going to get back. We'll get right back.
We'll go back to the UFO and fascists in a second.
But I kind of want to hit this for everyone. When you accept something and you can forgive something completely, it disseminates the power
breaks that power wall down immediately. And then you realize in yourself, when you get to the point of forgiving, that you have the greatest understanding of who you are and your control of your emotions. When you can forgive. When you can understand that it's not your lesson to learn in this lifetime to change someone else's perspective.
That's so good.
It's not for you. That's not your job. It's not your lesson to go teach other people to change their perspectives, their outlooks. You're here to learn on your own fashion, right? We all have our journey. We have our course. We don't know where it ends up. Right. It'll go somewhere. And it's almost guaranteed in the grave. So over that time is like, are you going to take that time to try and overpower other individuals, right? Change how they think, but never take the moment or the time to reflect on yourself and what you were doing to do the greatest amount of good.
Right, because we look at what somebody's done against us.
Right.
And then we hold our reality in those moments.
Yes.
Instead of looking at who we are and what we can become with the power that resides in us.
Oh man, I'm tingling right now. If we're looking at this, right, the understanding yourself is monumental to everything that's going to happen in your life and the choices that you make, right? You don't want to tell others how to act or behave, right? Because if you're doing so, you're already making your first mistake. You as an individual should understand that if someone does something to you that needs to be forgiven that was wrong or wrongs you in any sort of fashion, that's because that individual at the core of everything truly doesn't know any better.
Right.
If you knew better, you wouldn't do it. Is that correct?
Yes.
If you had all the information and you truly
when I was 16 and doing the crazy stuff I was doing, now I look at it and it was totally stupid.
You didn't internalize it at that time.
No, not at the time. No.
So
it was fun.
And so it's fun, right?
Right.
But you don't realize the effect that it has on others, and you haven't had the time to mold yourself from that information.
Right.
And you have to forgive, because if people make a wrong or if they do something wrong, it's not them attacking you, because if they truly knew better, if they were okay with themselves, if they truly understand who they were, they wouldn't have made that choice in the first place, right?
But and a lot of people are acting out of emotion in an unself-aware way. Right. Like they're not, I mean, to simplify it, they're not, okay, let's take it this way. And then we're going to, I want to, because we could do we're going to do a whole
That'll
podcast
be the next
on
one.
this.
We'll go on this,
But let's take it this way. So let's say you're a business owner or you're a leader.
Tell me.
And you have employees.
Oh, keep it up. Oh, keep going. Talk dirty to me.
And those employees, I see so many business owners, I'll go into businesses and I talk to them and it's like, I would do well if it wasn't for this person, or, I have to keep this person on because of this, or there's just so many excuses that are put out there. Or, like we have now, with the current leadership that we have in this country.
Yeah.
And previous leadership, whether Republican or Democrat, where it's anti this or anti that.
Remember we talked about this with Turtle? It's not a fear-based thing, me against them. We're talking about a combined effort of people working together.
Right.
It's not black or white, it's gray.
But what if as a society we could forgive the past and then we could come out with, because the highest vibration is love, right?
That's the highest, and love only happens when you forgive.
Right.
At the highest order. You cannot say...
Say that again. Love only happens when you what?
When you forgive. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I have like energy running up my spine thinking about it. In forgiveness lies the stoppage of the wheel of karma.
Yeah, explain that.
So I'm gonna say it one more time. So in forgiveness lies the stoppage of the wheel of karma, right? So your ability to forgive means that you understand, and an understanding is the fundamental relationship of love, right? And in doing so, karma, which is a function of bad choices and a lower energy, meaning you haven't learned your lessons.
Right.
Being able to forgive means you can love another person as much as you love yourself, because you realize that another individual is nothing but a reflection of you. Your world, what you do, what you say, what comes back into you, how you handle your emotions is a reflection.
And the things that it's always said this way, I think Ram Dass said this, the things that you hate in yourself are a mirror.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Mm-hmm. It is. Whether it's jealousy or whether it's hate.
All of it. So that's the lesson we need to learn internally, right? And so in forgiveness lies the stoppage of the wheel of karma. And it's a beautiful saying. And when we go into consciousness, we can talk about the medium channels that brought that information in, and I can tell you where that came from.
But I want to get back into, because this is a conspiracy theory podcast.
So that's good. So let's talk about
back into the most negative energy.
The most negative energy.
Hitler. Being egotistical.
Right.
Dictator.
So Hitler realized that at that point when they were creating Die Glocken, that they had access to information and technology that was above what the United States had at the time. And we had a bunch of spies over in Germany. Don't be fooled.
Right.
We were trying to understand this information and what they were creating. Now, Hitler realized that at a loss of resources, when we were kind of, circling around the Allies, or circling the Axis powers around Germany, on the eastern and western fronts, he was losing ground here in the United States. Now, at that time, a boatload of scientists in Germany and individuals, higher individuals, started to disappear. Where are these undocumented individuals post-war? Where did they all go, right? And this leads us into the area of the Antarctic. So when Hitler realized that he was losing ground in Europe, right, with his Lebensraum, or living space, that they needed to let the war happen on a physical nature, and now that they can create their own society somewhere else and actually leave the Earth and expand upon this and move into the stars, which was, the greatest thing for him, right? To become closer to that higher, more perfect spiritual being.
Right.
We need to get away from where we are. So where's the best place to hide yourself? In the absolute friggin'...
So that whole show of hiding Hitler and
Hitler going to Brazil,
South
Argentina,
America.
And then they're still looking down there only to find out
there's a doctor down there.
That Hitler died in the Mayo Clinic in the United States. So they go down there to Antarctica, right? And there was a thought from U.S. intelligence of the Germans that there was a base down there in Antarctica. So people are pushing to go down there and explore. That was the last unexplored area. Now, conspiracy theorists think that there are these massive underground tropical areas of a German base that is occurring underneath the ice that they had found with their German U-2 boats. German U-2 boat was a fabulous thing. So it was an electro-diesel boat. So it had these massive electro props run on a huge diesel motor, and it could circumnavigate the Earth on one full tank.
The whole Earth.
The whole Earth.
Okay,
on
say that again.
One tank of diesel, right?
Why aren't yachts doing that now?
No, because no one's used this. Those were some of the first like diesel electric vehicles, right? In the late 30s when this was designed, and this thing can go, albeit slow, at about 8 to 12 knots. This thing can circumnavigate the entire globe on one tank. That's impressive for a U-boat, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
So they're like, we got to get out of here, and we got to take our higher technology. We have to take it out of Europe, and we're going to go bring it down to underneath the ice. So they make their transactions down there, and all these scientists and people disappear from Germany at the time.
So you said tropical.
Tropical, right? So
in Antarctica.
In Antarctica, that doesn't make any sense.
No, right.
Ice is very thick.
Mm-hmm.
Super thick down there. When you get to a point that there are these thermal pockets, so if you go down deep in the ocean,
right,
you have these huge, hot sulfur things that are just pumping out all this hot energy, right? Changing the thermal area of what's going on in the deep ocean, which is extremely cold. But a lot of stuff lives around there. So there's no reason why you couldn't have these massive tropical thermal pockets that are happening underneath the ice, right? How do you know for a fact that there's not some sort of fault line or geomagnetic area that is popping out from underneath the ice that could create that sort of heat deep down?
Right.
And if you look at the U.S. Geological Service, that if you look at the maps, there's a lot of energy that comes out of the poles of the Earth.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
You got the Van Allen belts and stuff like that. So those pop way out of the Earth's orbit and such, and that's our magnetic field. So if they're coming out of the poles, there must be a high amount of energy. We got volcanoes here in New Mexico, tons of them, and there's a lot of electromagnetic energy that comes from
on the west side. There's even a Volcano Vista school named after it.
There's almost over 600 volcanoes here in New Mexico alone. I don't know if anybody knew that.
Yeah, 600.
So if you start looking at that energy in that area underneath the ice, they're down there like, okay, we found an area where we can take our subs, we can move them into the ice, it's a warm area, we continue to survive outside of what's going on in Europe, and we can progress with the technology and information that we currently have. So what you find is that later in the 40s, towards the end of the war, you have this guy named Admiral Byrd. And Admiral Byrd ran a naval expedition down to Antarctica, right? And he put this in the papers too, only to find out that this is one of the larger naval retreats that ever happened for the U.S. Navy, where when they came down there, that they were attacked by flying machinery that shot at the ships, took down all of our planes, our Warthogs, whatever the hell it was, the P-52 Mustang, or whatever it was called, that we were trying to fight. We couldn't fight it. They were using some other sort of technology, and it flew out of the ice. So the contention is that when he came back, it was that they were trying to go down there and squash the last remnants that they had found of Hitler and his, what do you call a breakaway society that happened underneath the ice. So from his advent of technology, leaving Europe, going down there, have a breakaway fascist German Nazi group that is trying to move themselves above what we are currently doing in our consciousness.
And people don't realize the Russians found supposedly his body.
So they found a bunker and like his body was in there with his wife. Crap, right?
Yeah, they took it and I think did they burn it real quickly or something? They've done DNA studies on it and it's proven that it's not. The whole issue of the Russians claiming that was Hitler is already been debunked.
And what's interesting is let's step this out even further. It wasn't Hitler that was the most fanatic person. You find in history that there's typically a lot of people that lead on an idea.
Yes.
But someone will take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't necessarily Hitler that started this breakaway society to take people to the next level. It's that he had people beneath him or working alongside of him.
Like Donald Rumsfeld?
Donald Rumsfeld, right? Werner von Braun.
Right.
Arthur Rudolph.
Right.
All these people who during Operation Paperclip were brought back to the United States, right? Because there was this higher technology.
So Nazis were brought back to the United States, sanctioned by the government, and this is proven.
That this is an absolute fact, right? So, and if you look at the highest decorated people in NASA,
right,
they're Nazis.
They're Nazis.
In their backgrounds, that's fact.
Right.
Gestapo, they set up massive camps, like labor camps, that killed tens of thousands of people. Right. And they were run by these set scientists just so they could build certain things.
And what's really cool, there's a picture out there, and I want people to look this up. I think it's what the president at the time was at Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, Lyndon B.
Because Nazis would do those sword fighting.
That's correct.
What they called it, where they would cut their faces or something like that. It was kind of like a thing to do.
It was a marker for them.
It was a marker. And so you see a lot of Nazi officers with cuts on their face. And that was kind of like I don't know, it's almost like I'm in the camp. It's the boys' club.
It's the boys' club.
Right.
We're in the skull and crossbones. We got a certain tattoo.
And so there's a picture out there of the head Nazi that was running NASA.
Sure.
With the President of the United States.
Yeah.
And you can see the big scar on his face.
Yeah, I mean, what are we going to do? So you have all this high technology that people were working on, and you had naval intelligence that was looking at this being like, hey, we know what the Germans are doing. How do we get a hold of it?
Right.
Okay. We beat them at the war. What do?
Right.
You take the intellectual property. It's like you're stealing a bunch of patents.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
they wanted to take that information, not only that we got from Roswell.
Correct.
They wanted to take the information that through that seer that Hitler was getting, that they built this aircraft off of.
Right.
That was chained.
That's correct. It was chained down.
They have it. You can go to the place today.
You can go to the place, yeah.
Where they had the aircraft at.
Big stone, like in Hebrew, they call it a keshet, which is an arch.
Right.
So it's all these stone arches put together in a big circle.
Right.
It's like a little coliseum, and it was what chained this thing down. Because you don't know how gravity works.
Mm-hmm.
Floating around all over the place. But, we needed to get an understanding of it. So we were kind of hopping on and be like, we got to absorb these scientists, we got to absorb this intellectual property, and we got to see what level they were currently at. Because the United States at the time had an idea that there was a breakaway civilization. They couldn't find Hitler. They couldn't find a lot of his top guys.
Right.
They don't know where, beyond the scientists, where large amounts of the laborers people in the country just happen to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Tens of thousands of people gone.
Yep.
Where did they go?
Right.
So then they start looking down, and Admiral Byrd, he runs his expedition down to Antarctica and it's not so that we can stake our flag there first, is because we had knowledge that something else is going on there, some other sort of research, right? Mm-hmm. Only so that we can get turned around, and Admiral Byrd, he's in the newspaper, he's like, listen, we cannot put up with the technology that's currently going on down here.
Right.
What's that lead to? That leads to us and the moon, right? Nazis going on the moon bases, right? Or
that happened before we went on the moon.
Before we even went on the moon. Mm-hmm. So my aunt...
The Russians were... There's a whole thing with that. How many cosmonauts died?
Trying to get up there.
Yeah, trying to get up there, yeah.
Apollo missions were kind of interesting, right? And let's digress for a second and we go back to the Nazis. first of all, my uncle was the head scientist for SETI recently. And before that, he was the original Man in Black for NASA. Okay, his name's John Rummel. So if there is any sort of object that comes into our atmosphere or has to leave it, he's the first guy to go down and go check it out to make sure there's no such biological substance on it that could plague the entire planet. Right? So Hollywood obviously does a spin on it to do a larger thing to say, hey, Men in Black, they're waiting for organisms to come in. Mm-hmm. So they moved it from amoebas up to large batwing things down in the 6th floor of Dulce. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly, yeah.
So he handled that, right? So from that standpoint at NASA, and then he moved over to SETI, which we have down over at Socorro, the big, very large array.
Right.
Which what we're doing, we're listening for noises in outer space. Now, beyond that, and speaking of the moon, his wife at the time, my aunt, was one of 4 or 5 female pilots in the Navy. And after the Apollo mission, she was the one that actually transported the moon rocks. So when they came back.
Which are supposed to be the oldest known rocks that we have.
Oldest known rocks that we have beyond a meteorite that has struck the Earth that might have been billions of years old. Right. Now, people say that, okay, the Apollo missions didn't happen. Hold on. If you look at the contention of certain theories, and I look at my family, if she's transporting the moon rocks, right, they obviously came from somewhere. They came from the moon, right? Now, people are more worried about pictures because something doesn't add up.
Right.
Either it's the color of the moon's surface, the sky is too dark, it must have some sort of atmosphere.
There's no stars,
There's no stars, that's an issue, right? And then that ties into Stanley Kubrick, because Stanley Kubrick apparently helped with the photography and how it was laid out, because if you look at 2001 Space Odyssey and how he has the ability to create these massive landscapes with certain amounts of depth, using this type of 3M screen film, crystal screen film that they would use and stitch together.
In the desert, yep.
So it's not that, and you got the auditory tapes from the Apollo missions that were cut out at certain points when they would see certain lights.
Or even I think it was in Perth, Australia, where they recorded them all and then they all disappeared.
Yeah. Right?
The raw footage.
Yeah, the raw footage.
Right. So now it leads into this big...
So it leads into the big thing. So what's happening? So it's not the fact that, it's a question of whether or not we did or did not go there.
Right.
You saw the rocket take off.
Right. Exactly.
It's going somewhere, and if we had the SR-71 in our computer guidance systems, it would not be a problem getting to the moon. Right. So when you're there, it's not, did we go there? It's were the pictures, the actual truthful pictures of what was being seen. Right. So that's the major conspiracy.
And I think that's where we need to understand. It's not whether we went there or not. It's what did they actually see when they were there.
That's the biggest thing.
Because we see how many, was there 11, 13, how many total astronauts went?
Oh, it was 10 plus. I know for a fact it's 10 plus. I can start with that range.
All of them have mentioned a higher conscious. All of them mention aliens.
That's correct.
All of them change their perspective.
Every time, because when you turn back and you look at this beautiful blue jewel that is the Earth, something inside of your spirit changes.
But there was something else that was there.
Why is it when you're going up on the Apollo missions, you're bringing this, first of all, a Nazi commissioned from NASA.
Right.
Gold disc that has all the information of what we currently know from prime numbers, in mathematics, language, theology, imprinted on this giant piece of gold. Why would you bring it up there to leave it on the moon?
Right.
That's a fact.
That is a fact.
Are you leaving it for someone? Is it someone to understand what's going on? So when you get up there, the moon's an interesting thing, and you look at the photos of it, and there's a lot of theories about it. I personally don't like the physics of the moon. It doesn't make much sense to me. Tidal locking. We can get into that in a second. But, my contention is we did go there. We might have saw things that were beyond our current understanding. And like we said, we have to keep that sort of stuff quiet because from a theological standpoint, it debases a lot of power. Right? So you have a mass amount of the globe that's, Muslim or Christian.
What happens if you say you saw... because we always talk about, and I want you to get into that, we always talk about the dark side of the moon. We got a Pink Floyd song.
Yeah, great. Awesome stuff.
Yeah. So what happens if they come back, let's say Buzz Aldrich, where we always see the video on YouTube, where he's somebody asks him and then he punches him.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Yeah, or they're talking about the giant megalith on Mars.
Right.
You know what I mean? First of all, have you ever seen a standing stone?
The what?
A standing stone.
A standing stone, in the sense of in Scotland or there's one in Atlanta in Georgia, right?
Well, the Georgia one, those were recently erected. Right. But there's some bigger, heavier ones they find in London and Scotland.
And then what's the ones that are buried down on that island? Easter Island,
Easter Island, right?
Yeah, they found out that it's buried even farther.
No, they're deep. It's not just the head, it's a full body.
Right.
Listen, you're talking about standing stones. There's some other sort of higher technology that we don't currently have. I've been in consulting, right? and I know how many riggers it takes to move like a 20-ton train.
Oh, yeah. Look at the pyramids.
It's a show. Okay.
Even, for people out there that are Christians, when you get into even on the Bible side of things.
Right.
Before the flood. Because there's a whole dynamic of that. Of
pre-flood.
Yeah, pre-flood. And then people living, the Bible talks about people living 600-800 years. Yep. Imagine Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin, Albert Einstein. Imagine them being young right now. And the amount of knowledge that they would have right now.
Huge.
Going along with technology.
Of course.
Reverse engineering, alien technology, all this. Where would we be at as a society today?
Yeah, where
would that happen? So if we lived to 600-800 years, let's saying that there was a water vapor canopy around and, we buy off onto the whole biblical accounts of the story before the flood.
Yep.
It would be almost, what's the movie where it's all biological and there's an engagement? Oh, he's making another one.
Come on.
With the horse and the girl that's green. Everybody's going to tell me right now here on Instagram.
Yeah, they're going to be on it right now. We got Buzz Lightyear. He joined. That guy's
Buzz Lightyear?
Yeah, Buzz Lightyear.
Hey, let's stop and pause. We're going to give a shameless plug.
Oh, here's a little pro. Here we go.
Santa Fe Brewing 7K IPA. You're drinking. Yeah. And I am really impressed with this Desert Fog.
The fog's fantastic.
This is a hazy IPA from Marble.
I'm moderately fogged right now out of that thing.
This is like next level hazy IPA.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Marble's producing some. So here we go. Pineapple, grapefruit juice, perfume with love.
With love.
Yeah, it says that. And it's an early morning fog kissed by the orange juice hued southwestern desert sunrise.
That is so fucking poetic. I think I felt like a tear coming up.
I don't want to throw away the can.
You can't. I look at it and it makes me want to cry. I'm welling up right now.
Hashtag Marble Brewing.
Oh, we have to. We got to bring them into it.
Yeah. On our conspiracy theory podcast, we need to have Marble be a part of this.
Yeah, and we're gonna do an @Buzz Light beer because that guy seems to be on it right now.
Yeah, he's on it. Yeah. He probably knows. Avatar is a movie.
Avatar's a great film. Wait, that's a consciousness thing. Can we save that for another episode? Right.
Yeah. We'll save that.
We're looking at the moon, so let's consider another conspiracy theory. So another one is that the moon is hollow.
Right.
Love this one.
Yeah, I like the cheese. Yeah.
The cheese. Big old Swiss moon. The moon's a funny thing. Now, the reason I say that is because let's first look at the artwork, cave artwork that you'd find in old Neanderthal caves, and I'm talking about France,
right, Western
United States, other parts of the world where you have those hunter-gatherers.
Mm-hmm.
They would paint stars.
Right.
They would paint the sun.
Mm-hmm.
They would paint caricatures of animals.
Which are way past 6,000 years.
Way past.
25,000 years.
I'm talking 10 to 25.
Yeah.
Why is it that no one ever painted the moon?
That's interesting.
No, that's a simple question. And it was only later until the Dutch started using oil paintings you see the moon start to show up.
Right.
Now, moon worship's been along for a long time. Greeks, Egyptians, things like that. But if we start pumping the numbers back, it's like, was this thing originally here? So a conspiracy theorist is that, when you take on the Death Star motto, is that this moon is actually a spaceship.
The whole moon.
The whole moon. That it's completely hollow, right? That someone took this thing and they transported it from place to place.
Right.
This is their contending theory. Now, I always thought I thought it was slightly interesting that the moon...
But I mean, how many moons is out there per each planet?
Well, you got quite a few. So Saturn has a shitload.
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter, my God, so many moons.
And they're not
even perfectly round. Some of them just look like potatoes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But everything's got a moon because everything has an orbit, right? So let's talk about the physics for a second. Now, all these other moons have some sort of rotation to them.
Right.
Now, when we look at our moon, it has this thing called a tidal lock. And tidal lock is the determinant that we only see one side of the moon. Have you ever watched the Olympics with the figure skaters?
Mm-hmm.
You know when they stick their fists out in a spin and then they pull them close, their speed increases?
Right.
They're taking the mass of an object, which is their fist or their arms, and then bringing it closer to their center, which means that object, as it moves in, should spin faster. The moon, which is in the orbit of the Earth, does not increase its speed as it moves towards the Earth. Right? Its spin does not increase because it's in a tidal lock. That doesn't make any sense. Matter of fact, if I got this right, 3 centimeters every year the moon is actually moving away from the Earth. How is it losing a gravitational flow? Is our spin as the Earth slowing down? But why is it that the actual rotation of the moon has not changed? But if you look at all the other moons, they're spinning.
Mm-hmm.
Every single other moon follows the laws of physics except for ours right here. You tell me this is just one isolated case that breaks physics? It's our closest thing. We went to it in the 60s and we haven't been back to it since.
So does that show that we're a privileged society? the universe? I mean, if they're observing,
there could be observing, right? So another conspiracy thing is that it's an observation room, right? It's a place where all these different alien life forms can come back and forth, and it's a trading hub for resources.
Right.
And if that time...
That almost seems like a trading hub. That almost seems like something that we would... Because if you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, you look at Star Wars, we're all about commerce and trade.
It's all commerce.
Which they're not... A higher intelligence would not... I mean...
It would be the lower end of a higher intelligence.
Isn't there, like, far superior natural resources? Isn't there a meteor that has more gold than we have on the Earth or something like that? Yeah.
Sure. So what type of resource?
We always think of, like, heaven, gold streets.
No.
You know what I mean?
What are the other resources? Labor.
Right.
People. Testing. What do you want to do? Well, I'll abduct a couple people. You trade me I'll take some of your alien tech. You can have 300 of my Germans. Do whatever you want with them.
Or go to the Egyptian Society. Go to the pyramids.
Go to the pyramids.
I'm a god.
Go for it. What's your god?
I'm 9 foot tall.
You raw?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How much labor do I have?
As much as you want.
If I'm an alien or an alien hybrid or whatever you want to call it, and I make myself a god.
Yeah.
You
can call upon whoever you want. So I can debate the whole thing that right now that the pyramids were built with slave labor.
Right.
So hold on. So the hollow moon, the contending theory for the hollow moon is that we crashed a satellite into the moon. And then from that, we got a sort of resonance, right? So where they say it rang like a bell. That was the quoted piece that came from the news article, which tells you that there's something hollow about the inside of the moon, right? Whether it's a cavernous system or something, but it's not as dense as we think it is. And if you look at the physics of it, its density and the way it spins in its tidal walk, something's up. It's not natural compared to all the rest of the physics that happen in the universe or a figure skater on ice in the Olympics.
Right.
It seems to defy it somehow.
But I think people always ask the question, why haven't we gone back?
That's what I was saying. So we went in the 60s. Why didn't we go back after?
Right.
What the hell?
I know Obama mentioned that he wanted to go back to the moon.
Right. So what do you go back to the moon for? Well, I don't know.
But I mean, there's lots of things that we've done.
Yeah.
That we just like, Yeah, I mean, we've conquered lots of areas. I mean, we have...
But this was apparently the greatest feat.
Right.
Is it not? This was the greatest achievement of mankind that we had ever done.
We beat the Russians.
We beat the Russians.
We were in Vietnam War at the time.
We created the first nuclear bomb. Right? What else did we do? We had the first GMOs. You know what I mean? We have the strongest financial system. Right? So why wouldn't you go back to something that is the monument of your success? We put as human beings, we put monuments on everything.
Right.
We build them everywhere. Go to Washington, D.C. We got monuments.
Every president has a library.
Everyone's got a library. Why don't we have a monument on the moon?
Right.
You know what I mean? It would only make sense in our egotistical nature that we would put something there. So why would you not?
Isn't there lunar aircraft still there?
Exactly.
No, what are the little things that they left?
The
those
rovers.
There? Yeah, the rovers, yeah.
Right. So
they're covered in dust probably or whatever, yeah.
Or dust or who knows what else. I don't know anything about the atmosphere up there. You know what I mean? But there's got to be something else happening to the fact that would stop you from going back and putting some sort of monumental mark on this.
So let me ask you, Alex, you believe we actually went to the moon?
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the conspiracy with Walt Disney, the 2001 Odyssey, the Masons, because there's like a 33rd degree Masons. They were all like connected together.
Yeah.
You had the Nazis who were a part of that.
Yeah.
You know,
throughout history, there are tight niche groups. And these groups have been privy to information that the general public does not have.
Right.
And so what do you do when you have this info? You have power, right? When you have information that other people don't have. That's why you have insider trading. That's why they make so much money, because they have a power and advantage.
And let me stop people there, because I do trading. Majority of the trading is done on the currency side.
That's correct.
People don't realize that.
No, they don't realize it's Forex.
There's no such thing as insider trading on the currency side.
No, that's all Forex, right? So
right, yeah.
It's just having an understanding, is this government going to print more this year than they would last year?
As a German banker, I can turn around and tell a Dutch banker what's going to happen to the franc.
Correct.
And I don't have any laws against me.
There's no laws on that, right?
People need to realize that, because the amount of trading that's done on currency side is dwarfed compared to the amount of stock trading that's happening.
Regular securities.
Right. The SEC does not exist.
No, it's not a thing. You know,
and this old money that's been around because that's something I always want to tell people. Warren Buffett made all his money after he was 50, 55 or whatever.
Yeah, started in New Bedford, Massachusetts.
And I know this is a heavy Catholic, because we're going to get into something here on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. I know this is a heavy Catholic.
After dark.
After dark.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it regardless, and what if you're Christian, Catholic, Buddhist, I'm happy for you. I'm excited about where we're going. I hope that helps you be more moralistic and helps you have a higher conscience. But at the end of the day, you got to look at the Vatican and you got to say compound interest. Warren Buffett. They've been making that since when? The 1400s?
Yeah, so I don't want to... Usury,
how much money do they have?
Usury or usury, right? So you have, in the Vatican, you have this thing called the IOR. So the IOR is a sovereign bank of the Vatican. Mm-hmm. So that means there's no regulation.
No one's showing up now on our Instagram.
Yeah, they're like, we got to leave.
Okay, we're out.
Yeah, we're done.
We're going to have, when I was at the Vatican, they have the little clown guys.
Yeah.
But when I was in the Marine Corps, we did special training with them. I forgot their names.
Come on.
They're like super badass special forces.
Yeah, no, you don't mess around with the Vatican Guard.
No, the Vatican Guard, yeah, you don't mess around with them. It's like next level.
Yeah, they know what's going on. So, holy crap. Okay, so just like...
Should we get with the Catholic Church and the Nazis?
There's like so much
in
going
South America?
Yeah. I'm like trying to reconcile all the different...
We need some more desert fog.
Yeah, I'm trying to reconcile through the fog right now.
We were thinking, but nope.
Oh my gosh. So, wait a minute. So, I don't even know what we're talking about. We talking about the Vatican?
Yeah, I was just talking about how much money they have.
So, they got a lot of money. I was reading a great book called God's Bankers. And it's
called God's Bankers.
It's called God's Bankers.
So
it was discussing how the Vatican came to financial power, right? Mm-hmm. So you have things like Peter's pence. So when you go to make a donation,
right?
They hand the basket to you at church. Mm-hmm. You put a buck in it. So a portion of those proceeds go to the archbishops, and then it channels back to the Vatican over in Italy.
Right.
Right. So the Vatican took that money and had to find a way, during the war when they were losing kind of sovereign control and power, to use that to round up their assets and evade certain regulations that were happening with the many governments that came through Italy at the time. Right. Italy's a mess.
And they're their own sovereign country.
And they're their own sovereign country. That's
if you go to the Vatican, you're in a different country.
It's a different country. That's correct. So the IOR did a lot of funding. And this is fact that they funded a lot of the Nazis at the time. Right, because there was good industrial wealth that could come from working with the fascists.
Right, you had Spain.
Yes.
That was involved.
Spain was involved.
South America.
Was involved. Yeah. South America was involved. And you find that the Vatican, the IOR, owned large groups or swaths of industrial companies all over the place, from energy to mining to banking, all these separate things and all these shell accounts. So the Vatican later accumulated a boatload of wealth. This is not a conspiracy. This is a fact. And then from that, they have used that power that they've had to control their little state, right, their sovereign identity, and consume knowledge and books and all this other stuff in this system of control from a little blip within Italy. Now, if we go further back to Egypt, you have the Library of Alexandria.
Right.
So a conspiracy theory is that the Library of Alexandria, when it was burnt down, there were a lot of priests in there. Well, not all the books were totally lost.
No.
They thought that the priests at the time had actually preserved a lot of the books, and many of them ended up at the Vatican. Mm-hmm. So if you look at some of the current research that's happening in Israel, they found a lot of books that are actually lead typeface, which means your pages are actually made of metal. And they're typed in because from a preservation standpoint, they would last forever. It's not an acid-backed paper that's going to wear.
Right, and you can look that up, and it's true.
And it's true, right? So the conspiracy theory is that in the Vatican archives, which no one's allowed into, right? So beyond the power that the Vatican has, it
has tunnels.
It has tunnels. They withhold the documents that would actually apparently debase a lot of the theological ideas that the dogma or that the Vatican actually pushes out.
Yeah, and you look at it, it's so interesting, that dance.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a little light right now, but it's so interesting, the dance between the artist, the scientist, and religion.
Right.
And how that's played out. I mean, you see it when you go there. We've all watched the Tom Cruise movies, Da Vinci and all that. And we love that
love
stuff.
The Da Vinci Code. Yeah,
we always want to go there and go to the different churches and see that. And then we see it's true.
Yeah.
And then we're like, Michelangelo did this, Da Vinci did this, and we look at that, but we don't see it current.
No.
And that's something that worries me because we've become so scientific, I think.
We've lost the value in the art of what we do. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of, I'm going to look at my mother for an instance. She collects things.
Right.
Dining room tables, grandfather clocks. There's
doilies.
Doilies. Oh my God.
My grandma,
that design's fabulous.
Plastic.
It took time
Right.
Right? It took labor, it took heart to create and design these things, right? And you see those in museums.
Right.
Now, when I look at my mom, she collects these things, and she's like, wow, look at all these beautiful things, all this hard work, the money and stuff that goes into it to accumulate these beautiful items of wealth, whatever the hell they might be. I don't care about material shit. But when I sat down, I had a conversation with girlfriend, and we're like, what would we put in a museum right now in our time? A rechargeable battery? A 55-gallon oil drum?
Yeah.
Where's the heart, the artistry that's gone into this sort of thing? Technology has almost like washed away the spirit and the creativity of what was happening.
Like when you look at that, what's that church in Spain? The big one that's like alien looking, and they're still working on it. Damn it! I wish we knew the name. But when you look at the ceiling.
We got people dropping off right now. Murder by Beth is like, I got to get out of here.
No, but who is it?
Murder by Beth.
Yeah, Murder by Beth. I like that one.
That's a good one.
We have like great names on here. I see a New Mexico. What's that one? New Mexico State?
Yeah, Angeline. She's watching.
That's good. But when you look at, it's funny to me when you look at these, when you look up and you see, in these cathedrals.
Yeah.
It's so esoteric and so out of this world. You know what I mean? It is
out of this world.
And those artists tapped into something. You sent me that video and I'm putting it in there.
Yeah.
But the guy talked about, he was 13 years old?
13 years old, that's correct.
And he was inventing rockets.
He was in rockets. So you remember the October Sky, I think the film was? Mm-hmm. That kid got all the media, the one in October Sky. But if you look at the real scientific pre-high school awards, for the science fairs, David Adair got a hell of a lot more awards.
Right.
He was in his newspapers. Mm-hmm. Werner von Braun, German Nazi scientist, did award him at some of his stuff. Right. It's funny what the perspective and direction is taken.
Here, kick that off. New York's trying to call me.
Screw New York.
That's a banker.
Yeah, we don't need. Yeah, they're like, can you stop?
I've had Google call me, and I've had New York call me.
Google, and we got BNY Mellon calling us now. Yeah. Can you stop it?
Who's the guy that runs JP Morgan Chase? Diamond.
Yeah, Diamond. Yeah, Diamond or Dimond, whatever his name is.
Yeah, exactly.
But my point is, it's funny to see. It's like a scientific paper. Some scientific papers get cited more than another one. Mm-hmm. So once it gets to an inflection point, everybody's going to end up reading that paper and citing it. Mm-hmm. But the ones that may have the proper data don't get all the citations,
right,
and they get lost.
Right.
So, for instance, David Adair, this guy was creating these rockets. He wasn't cited either in Hollywood or all these other things as much as this other individual was, and you find he gets a movie with October Sky. Right. His story is not made public. So we go back, we start looking at all this data and this science, and we start looking at the human spirit and what's been built, and it's like certain things get missed, they get lost. The true intelligence, the genius.
But don't you think that's an artist's responsibility to bring back that human spirit?
Of course it is, yeah. No,
because there's something, and you talked about that with your company on our last podcast, and I encourage people to listen to that. But the human spirit is, how do we develop that with technology? How do we develop that with AI? How do we go into the future and have the human spirit?
Right. How do we get to that point where we're not just evolving from a physical standpoint, right, but also from a non-physical one? Mm-hmm. That life is a matter of balance. Mm-hmm. A tree doesn't stand up with half of a root system, does it?
Right.
The ocean sits in some sort of medium or balance, otherwise it would flood the plains.
Right.
You find everything sits in some sort of balance. So if we don't find that balance between the physical and the non-physical, technology and then melding that with the human spirit, we can find that we develop a lot quicker. That human spirit starts to grow, right? We use technology to the advantage of not making technology more efficient.
How do you get technology in the unphysical, in the esoteric side?
You make it more sensitive, right? So, like I said, remember how we're talking about those energies that are so raw?
Right.
Right? That's what we're used to. Hard, dirty energies, like things like nuclear energy. It's like you can really read it. It's easy sensors to pick up on it.
Right. We build Geiger counters. We
all that stuff, right?
Instruments that gauge it.
Those are heavy sine waves you're picking up on, right? You're asking me to talk about something about a consciousness, right? You're talking about something more sensitive, a little bit more lightweight. It exists. It's there.
It's proven.
But do you have the technology sensitive enough to pick up on those waves? That
right. We're worried about retargeting on Louis Vuitton purses.
Right.
Over.
Wait a minute. Was that conscious thought the right one?
Right.
You know what I mean? And being able to measure that. Because we're just starting to go into alpha, data, delta, and beta waves for our brain, right?
Do you think AI and advertising will pick up on that? I mean, they're going to pick on it before we do.
They'll pick up on it before we do, right?
They're going to know. They're going to know if that intention, like you said in our last podcast, if that guy that's looking at that Honda CR-V,
correct,
was yelling at his dog.
Yeah.
But prime example, I was watching the video on YouTube that you sent me.
Correct.
I'm in the kitchen making a salad.
Yes.
My commercial comes on.
Wait a minute, are you like a vegan or something?
No, I'm not a vegan. I put ham on my salad. Horrific. But my commercial comes on from the Mazda dealership.
Correct.
That I did.
Yeah.
And I was in the kitchen chopping stuff, so I'm not going to hit skip ad. You know what I mean?
Right.
So was my intention really to buy a Mazda? No, I mean, I work there. I've gone on the website.
It's an egotistical intention.
Yeah.
Right? And now what happened? Your marketing dollars went in the wrong place.
Yes.
So this is what, and that goes back to Turtle, right? It's like, how do you figure out what the true demand is of something? How do you look at people, the human spirit, what the intention is of the individual?
So everybody that's watching live right now, everybody that's on here, I did this, and I know we talked about it before, and I encourage them to listen to the podcast before. We got into conscious a little bit about, we got into AI and data and, computer science, but if they need to log on right now.
Log on to Turtle.co.
Yeah, Turtle.co.
Create yourself an account. And then start to work with it, start to understand that the more of us that use this system with Turtle, the more the people that get on the exchange, the more our data is worth, the more sovereignty and control we have over it, and the more good we can do with the human spirit in figuring out what actually needs to get done to help each other.
Because you're just giving your data away for free, and they're using it. The military complex, these advertising, they're just using it.
And it's advertising that frankly you don't even need.
It's not just about the money, it's about being able to have control.
That's correct.
Of the data. People have control.
You didn't realize that things got out of control.
Right. It is out of control.
So now it's time to put the drivers, you put yourself back in the driver's seat.
And you're going to rely on some 75-year-old senator.
Correct.
That's going to sit there and interview the alien of Facebook.
Right.
That's why everybody was joking around.
Yeah.
The way he was awkwardly drinking water and stuff.
Something's up with that. Something's fishy here.
So you have like two awkward people.
I heard he took a trip to Dulce.
This guy's never even has an account on Facebook.
Yeah.
The senator doesn't have an account on Facebook. You got the guy that controls it.
Yeah.
And we've all watched the Facebook movie, so we know how that all went down.
Correct.
And you're going to put your most important information, how many children you have, how long you've been married.
Correct.
If you've been in a relationship or not, if you've separated, if you're single again, what information Google knows, every web page you go to.
Everything.
The NSA knows.
They all know.
They all know. They all know.
And you're just going to hand it out for free.
And you're going to hand it out for free.
You didn't think for 1 second that you created it, you own it.
And you don't think that you have this little data packet of Troy Jason Rigby.
That's exactly
with
right.
my little social security number, my date of birth, and it has everything that I've ever looked at.
Everything.
It has everything that I've ever done.
Yep.
I just bought a dining table online.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let's create a data packet for that. We'll call it the Jason Data Packet 1.
So I went on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
And I was looking at dining room tables. Found one. So this is Facebook. So they got all this shit.
Yeah, please keep going.
And then there was, I'm going to an involuntary plug. I'm going to plug this company because they did good.
Yeah.
I'm going to share with the shipping. So it was called Open Sky.
Yep.
That was the company. Open Sky turned around, sent me the 4 chairs, did not send me the table.
Brilliant.
I emailed them.
We just all sit down and look at one another. Yeah.
So I emailed them. Within 48 hours, they got back with me. And then from there, FedEx had only sent part of the package, the other.
Right.
So I emailed them back, say, sorry, my bad email that I sent out. I was nice, but I was like, I'm missing the damn table.
You were cordial.
I was cordial, yeah. But I'm like, I got it all, and it shows it delivered, but I got a table missing.
Right.
4 cool chairs or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is not doing it for me.
So then I turn around, email them. So I went to Open Sky's website. I went to Facebook Marketplace. I went to Gmail to do all this. So right there alone, just in buying that dining room table, there's probably, I went to FedEx website. How many pixels are on that? How many cookies are on all that? They have all that.
And listen, I just bought the damn dining room table. Can you not market me another one? Where am I going to put it in the house? Do you think I live in some sort of like 5,000 square foot mansion?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's nonsensical. So do yourself a favor, do everybody a favor. Go on Turtle, start using the system, use the data packets, take back the sovereignty of your data, and then do some good. Actually help the other businesses out there understand what the demand is so we don't have the ecological waste, none of that nonsense going on, and we can continue to develop and grow as a species, even spiritually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like you said, I think Patagonia is a perfect example, being a conscious company.
That's what it is.
You know, wanting, if we're going to make purple pattern socks and we only sold 2 pairs, then why we'd have REI Outlet, take those out at $4 a pair. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's no need for that.
There's no need for it.
That's waste.
It's waste.
That's why we have a Ross and a Marshalls and a...
So Turtle is like the giant nuclear drill that they were using to build the tunnels. You know what I mean?
It makes a perfect glassy.
It's everything.
It fills the cracks.
It's an efficient straight line, fills the cracks, and there's no waste. You know what I mean?
But it has nothing to do with the government.
It has nothing to do with the government. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny there. Let's cut back on. We got Instagram is off.
Yeah, we're back. So we're back. They didn't like how much we were talking about.
No, they didn't like that. Yeah. Well, I mentioned Facebook Marketplace and it cut off.
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
Because Instagram is owned by Facebook.
That's
a lot of
correct.
people don't realize that.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of good going on. So if we go back to our Nazis on the moon and like what's going on here, you're developing a higher technology, right?
Oh, is this mine?
Yeah, and that higher technology is determinant of how evolved we are with like a human spirit, right? And that's going to take a first step. And maybe that first step is Turtle.
Right.
That'd be cool. You know what I mean? But we're going to get there.
But we need companies out there that have a conscience.
Yeah, it's not, when you create like an LLC or something like that, they call it an entity.
Right. It's ruled like a person.
It's ruled like a person.
The Supreme Court came up with that.
Should it not have the consciousness of an individual?
Yes, it should. And I think we're forgetting that because I don't remember where that was. That was wasn't that in the 90s where they came out and they ruled an LLC as a person? Like is it an actual identity?
No, it's an absolute entity.
So if you think of and this is great, Albuquerque Business Podcast. This is where here we go. Conspiracy. It's after dark. We know that. But I want you to think of your company as a person with a conscience.
Correct.
What does that look like?
You'd make a different choice. So you wouldn't want to do things that would harm you. Right. You wouldn't want to do things that would ill your reputation.
Right.
You wouldn't want to make choices. So if you had to feed the company, right, food,
right,
or for instance, we're going to say dollars or some sort of profit, it needs to ingest that to survive.
Right.
So you wouldn't want to make choices that would, in the long term, decrease that supply of energy that you need. Correct?
Right.
So it would only behoove you to make these decisions of applying a consciousness of that act, right? Taking a combined group thought of all the people that work underneath it, a combined consciousness to make the right choices.
And what if you took small businesses in the United States? Because you can't do it on a large corporation size. It's all shareholders, earnings, but you took small business owners that were out there that are impacting local communities.
Yep.
That's the heart of our country, the United States.
Mom, pop, brick and mortar.
And we started developing consciousness within those.
Well, it's important.
Right.
Because that's more applicable. That's more of a one-to-one relationship between the person and the entity.
Right.
And that relationship gets lost when something becomes public.
Right.
Because it's no longer we're making conscious decisions to move this large entity or this whale.
Right.
Right. It's like having a bunch of scuba divers in the ocean trying to move this whale in a different direction. The whale's going to go where it wants to go.
Right.
Right. But being a shareholder, it's like, hey, this whale has parasites on it. We got to clean this off. We got to leave it.
It wants to beach itself.
Correct.
So we need to put it back in the water.
We got to put it back in the water
because it's making us money.
But the whale knows better.
Yeah, the whale knows better. Yeah,
the whale because it's a whale.
That's a conspiracy we can get in with submarines.
Submarines and sonar, right? Yeah. So no, that's interesting. And you talk about that. That's an interesting conspiracy. Is that you start looking with the mermaids,
right?
Right, or like the sonar was actually upsetting how the whales actually navigate in the water. It upsets their cellular structure.
I don't understand this whole. I mean, it's kind of cool. Let's get something we're light real quick.
Yeah.
The mermaid hair. The girls with the blue, purple.
Yeah.
But it doesn't last long.
No, why?
It's like, why are you doing that? Yeah,
just get it.
Brown, black.
No, I get the whole
blonde,
listen, I get the point of being different, having an identity.
No, but I mean, it's kind of cool. It's like green, blue, and all that stuff. But I think that's going to be gone, the minute you go in a chlorine pool with blue hair, you're like...
ruined.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah. No, I mean,
like yoga pants, are they going to come and go?
I hope not.
Like in the 80s,
Lululemon yoga pants.
80s, you had the high-waisted jeans, like over the hip ones.
No,
and
they have that now. All the girls are wearing these high-waisted.
In their back.
Yeah, and I don't really like those because as a guy, it makes that makes them look this long. You know what I mean?
A mile long.
But it's so funny because now shorts are getting into. Yeah,
it's a total alien hybrid. That's Dulce. I think Dulce is doing the marketing for the high-waisted pants.
Yeah, it's like I'm not into the high. Everybody's doing like, when was that? That was like late 70s, wasn't it?
Late 70s, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now you got the yoga pant, right? It's not spandex, Spandex wasn't cool.
Spandex, yeah.
That was the Richard. Who's the Richard guy doing dance and shit?
Yeah. No, you know? I like Milli Vanilli. Remember them?
Who the hell is that?
The ultimate fake hip hop band. Blame It on the Rain.
No.
They wore spandex.
Oh my God, you're over my head. You're totally over my head.
90s. Yeah, you're young, so you don't know. Yeah, like the jelly shoes. Do you remember those?
Jelly shoes and sandals. You know, you got your jelly flops.
You got sandals on now.
Oh, I got the Chacos. This is a nice, good, responsible company right here. I'm for this.
They're environmental friendly?
Oh, they're fantastic. They encourage you to resole your shoes.
Oh, really?
What kind of person's like, don't buy another pair, just resole them? You know what I mean?
That's cool. And they're called Chacos?
Yeah, the Chacos. They're local. They're local to the area.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
great.
Cool, yeah.
Wait, can we go back to like conspiracy here for like a second? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've gone over almost 3 hours.
That's fucking unreal. Can we split this into two podcasts?
Yeah. We've gone through like 4 Instagram lives.
Yeah, these people are like,
hanging on.
I'm sick and tired of watching these two. You know what I mean?
We're done. Yeah, I'm out, Jason. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come back maybe in a few weeks, a month, and we're going to talk about conscious living.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
And I want it to be real practical, like in the sense we'll go esoteric, like big picture.
Sure.
And then let's bring it down, like when we talked about love, when we talked about forgiveness.
How do we actually
daily practice it? Yeah.
Daily practices of that consciousness, of that love, do that greater good.
And with business owners.
Yeah.
With employers, with employees.
There's no defining factor.
There's no defining factor. That's the beautiful part about it.
Anybody can do it.
With leadership, there's a little bit of responsibility.
Sure.
And you have people that are over you. But I think more than anything, New Mexico, I think at the end of the day, having a higher conscious and having that ability to be able to look at what's going on in the landscape. I mean, we're both outsiders.
Of course we are.
And we're coming in, and I'm excited about Albuquerque.
I'm excited.
Dude, I'm like...
No, I'm very...
I see like beginning stages of...
people are like, oh, potential. No. Not only do you have the highest technology in the world here,
right?
Now we are afforded the opportunity to spiritually uplift ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Investment not only in physical things, but in ourselves in this local area. We have this beautiful landscape. Albuquerque's a great place.
Amazing weather.
Oh my God!
And we're seeing today the best beer.
Oh, the best beer.
Hold on. Beer.
Shameless plug.
I mean, how long have your relatives been making beer in Massachusetts?
Oh, forever. Are you kidding me?
1776?
Yeah, I think they're dating back to the Egyptians right now. So, like, that's good stuff.
I'm from Seattle, Portland area. Love the beer here.
Yeah,
breweries are kicking ass. I just see, we've got more art coming into the area.
Yeah.
We've got, the movies, the TVs,
art,
the Netflix.
movies, startups.
Right.
Like
startups.
Like my own, Tartle.
Like your own.
Okay.
Tartle.co.
Tartle.co. We're on all social media, guys. Kick it old school. Please create an account. The more we use it, the more it's worth for everybody. It's going to be a big win. This will do a lot of good for the earth. Come on, if you want to ski in the morning and mountain bike in the desert in the afternoon, you know where you can go and do that? Albuquerque, New Mexico.
You can't anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. Like when the weather's like crazy, it's like 32 at night
nuts.
And then 70 during the day.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. I mean, like Seattle, where I'm from, everybody thinks, Seattle, Portland's so cool. Seattle has like the second highest suicide rate ever. Literally, you go like
too many gray skies.
250 days. I get tired here when it's gray.
Oh,
People don't realize the amount of energy that you can have here.
I got so much vitamin D. I'm so jacked up. I'm so jacked up right now. I'm like shaking, I'm like my dog. It's just like foaming at the mouth all the time.
And there are so many outsiders in Austin, in California. Where on the west side, when you get past Texas?
Correct.
That has the potential that Albuquerque does.
Past Amarillo? Nothing.
No, think about it. No, think about it. Colorado's done. California's done.
No.
Maybe Boise.
Maybe
Boise.
Maybe not much going on in corn country.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of militia and crazy shit going on there.
Yeah,
but I like Boise. Yeah,
Albuquerque has beautiful outdoor life.
Right.
Cheap cost of living.
Oh, amazing cost of living.
A plethora of jobs. And if anyone says there's no jobs around here, there's a massive startup community. We have the highest tech in the world with the labs.
Right.
And if you want to work in the government, guess what? You can do that too.
Do it. Yeah, Los Alamos.
We got it all.
Well, I think Intel just came with a whole bunch of jobs.
Intel,
Sandia, that's 1,200.
Netflix.
Yeah. I think Fox Universe or somebody just came in.
We got beer. We got good barbecue. And we got good vegan food.
Yeah.
You get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, we did. We called Monique.
Yeah, we called Monique.
And we found out there's a pizza place and...
Yeah, what the hell was that pizza place called? It was something with like...
It was in Edgewood or something.
Tail Rider
in the
Pizza or something
Tail
like
Rider.
that?
This is a vegan place.
Yeah, no, it's
so
good
we'll
stuff.
hit them out. Yeah, because you're vegan.
I am a vegan. Yeah, listen.
So real quick, before we leave, what is the reason you're vegan?
Okay, so my body has been an experiment for a long time.
So you do like the biohacking or whatever?
Well, so yeah, biohacking is like another term for figuring out what's the best thing that works for you.
Right.
Right. So I found it over time that as I left meat and animal byproducts, I began to be more efficient. My clarity of thought was better. My skin complexion was better. My hair was better.
Yeah, you do have amazing hair, bro.
Thank you very much. I think better.
You could rock a man bun more than anyone here.
No, I love rocking the man bun. Oh, I'm all about it.
Yeah, we need a picture of you with the man bun. Yeah.
No, let's do it. We'll hashtag the bun.
Yeah,
99.9 the bun.
The bun.
But I found out that, you don't need to sleep as much. You have a higher energy. Your health statistics, if you check your blood, it's cleaner, it's better. There are so many obvious facts in front of me, and I'm not trying to be, evangelical
so are you more
about this.
vegetable centric? Do you eat a lot of vegetables?
I'm all vegetables and grains. I have absolutely no animal byproduct, none of that.
Right. Grains, that's an issue nowadays, right?
Yeah, so everyone thinks it's an issue, right? It depends on how you respect the grain, right? So you have these things called phytonutrients, and if you break them down properly, your body can absorb it. Mm-hmm. You get your compound carbohydrates, stuff like that. There's just so much more good that comes from a vegetable.
Right.
Without the detriment on the body, as opposed to trying to break down.
See, I'm vegetable meat guy.
Yeah.
So like organic meat and vegetables, which you would eliminate the meat part.
That was a step, right? So I went from regular meat to, I stopped microwaving things, and then I'm like, okay, I got meat, and then I go to organic grass-fed. And I'm like, wait a minute, do I really need this? No, I haven't lost any muscle mass.
Right.
So then I'm a vegetarian. And then I'm a vegetarian. I'm like, okay, what's the last step? Okay, I'll get rid of the cheese and I'll stop eating eggs. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now that that's gone, there's been no change in my body. I'm stronger, faster, breathe better, think clearer, sleep less, skin's good, hair's nice.
Right.
And I have no ecological detriment that happens with slaughtering animals. I don't have to socially worry about it.
Right.
I don't worry about the carbon footprint for transporting these things, and I'm not supporting something I don't believe in.
Right.
So one, I'm not a hypocrite, and two, it makes me feel better. So that's why I'm a vegan.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think you're seeing a trend of that more and more.
Yeah, people are
here in the United States.
The spirit, right?
Right.
People are picking up that. Wait a minute, that just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right.
The vegan chocolate chip cookies at Whole Foods.
Unreal.
I'm done. I'm in on those.
Have you?
I buy those,
Jason?
They're gone.
Have you tried the coffee cake?
No. At Whole Foods?
Lights out.
Vegan coffee cake at Whole Foods?
Vegan coffee cake Whole Foods. Guys, here's another plug. Vegan coffee cake Whole Foods. Go pick it up right now.
And the chocolate chip cookies.
Oh,
if they
my
have
God.
them, because I think that people just swoop them up.
Yeah.
They're amazing. They're better than regular chocolate chip cookies.
They're awesome.
Yeah, and there's no eggs or anything.
Oh my God, I don't want to be evangelical about this, but the more you realize that it's not necessary,
right,
your perspective changes. And then I look back and I'm like, why did I do that? I didn't know any better.
Yeah, it's the whole conscious elevation.
I didn't know, you know, and I had to test and learn, and I reflected.
Until my conscious gets past bacon, bro.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Listen, I loved bacon. God, I loved bacon, but now I've realized
pork. I could do good without the beef.
Yeah.
I could do good without the chicken.
Yeah.
Seafood I don't like, which is weird. I know where you're from.
No, I know.
But pork? Oh my God.
Listen, like a mean pork shoulder?
Oh yeah. Oh, I like ribs.
Yeah.
Barbecue sauce, smoked.
If it's almost like a testament to the quality you're cooking to when you become vegan.
Yeah.
How creative can you be?
Right. No, I like the buffalo cauliflower.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Like I can eat those instead of buffalo wings. And let me tell people, here's a shameless plug here.
I love plugs.
If you're at the airport, there's that little bar that's, when you walk straight through in there. I forgot the name of the bar.
What airport? Are we talking about Denver or Albuquerque? Okay.
No, not Denver.
Okay.
There's aliens there.
Yeah, there's too many aliens at the Denver airport.
The Sunport. The Albuquerque Sunport.
Yeah.
There's that little bar, and they have the little coasters that freeze your IPAs or whatever.
That's nice.
They have a cauliflower buffalo wing.
Yeah.
That is super bomb.
I didn't know this.
I was shocked. I mean, it's got to be like it's got to be something, but it's amazing. No, I always order that. I get an IPA and I get that.
Things are changing.
Yeah,
it is. There's massive government subsidies on dairy and meat products, which makes it affordable. When they realize that it's a business that should have failed 30, 40, 50 years ago, if it wasn't for government subsidies,
right,
people probably need it. But if you incentivize people on their health, if you look at people, do you want to live longer? Well, yeah, I kind of do. Do you want to feel better every day? Yeah, right. I kind of do. Do you want to decrease how much it costs to go to the grocery store? Yeah, I guess so. Well, then you start looking at vegan, you're like, this kind of makes a lot of sense. Outside of the spiritual thing. Don't even look at the animal slaughter. Just look at your wallet.
I mean, look at it as a society as a whole.
Right.
I mean, you could see India with the dynamics, how many billions of people they have.
It's elevated.
Yeah.
It's an elevated consciousness. You know what I mean? I'm not putting myself above everyone. I'm just saying that.
For you.
Yeah. For me, it worked better.
Yeah. If I can get past the bacon part, bro, I'm in.
Yeah. Oink, oink.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys for listening to us. I know we're at 2 hours and 54 minutes.
Perfect.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to do another one on conscious living.
Yes,
we'll get into veganism, but we're going to get into love, forgiveness, vibrations.
That's right.
And we're going to get some crazy stuff too, like Palladian,
channeling, all that other stuff.
We'll get into channeling.
We'll be into it.
I love that. Yeah. This is going to be our after dark podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's dark. I'm talking like early, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Maybe we'll wake up Byron.
Yeah, we'll wake up Byron.
99.9.
It'll be the witching hour. Byron, you need to get in here real quick.
Yeah, what's those things where they find the water? Oh, dowsing.
Dowsing's incredible.
Yeah, I've never tried that. I want to try that.
My great uncle was a phenomenal dowser. So I looked at it, I'm like,
that's a thing with certain people.
It's a magnetic thing. It's nuts.
I saw that with somebody. They did it and it moved. And
it's nuts. Like when you got a guy walking around with a stick like this and things points at the ground,
I want to see
you dig and there's water, you're like, that's not right.
Here in the desert, that would be interesting. Well, you got to be a freaking good dowser.
You got to be real. We should have a dowsing competition.
We should, yeah.
Sponsored by
99.9.
Yeah, 99.9. The Beat Albuquerque Business Podcast dowsing competition.
Dowsing competition.
I love
that'd be great.
Let's do
That'd be good. So hey, we're out. We thank you guys for paying attention to us. Thank you, Instagram Live. We appreciate it. I know some of you have come on and off, and we want to thank Marble.
Oh, Marble Brewing, definitely.
Bomb. Santa Fe Brewing Company. We had those today. Yep. We just had a few.
We thank Tartle also.
Tartle.
Guys, listen. Tartle.co. Create an account. Learn, liberate, take back the power of your data.
Of your data. Of you as a human.
Of you as a human being.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
That's perfect. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thank you to our sponsor, DukeCityMarketing.com. Please go to abqpodcast.com where you can get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner in Albuquerque.